Well, good evening, America, and welcome to Love for the Win, Christians for Kamala. My name is John Pavlovitz. I'm an author, pastor, and activist from Wake Forest, North Carolina, and we are so glad that you've chosen to join us tonight. We are gathering with people of faith all over the country, and I want to welcome those who are watching us, whether it's on the YouTube channel or on our website, christiansforkamala.net, or whether you're on one of the Facebook pages we are broadcasting to. Just an amazing thing to gather tonight. And what I want to do first is introduce you to our co-host, my co-host for the evening, my partner in crime for this event. She is an actress, a director, she's an activist, an entrepreneur, and a singer, and she's a dear friend. And so let me welcome my friend, Melinda Hale. Hey, Melinda, how are you tonight?
Hey, John. Thank you so much for asking me to do this with you. I'm really excited to be here tonight. And I couldn't be more excited to just be joined with like minded individuals who want to move this country forward in a way that champions people from all walks of life. That is why we're here. I've been a progressive Christian my whole life, and I know that a lot of us have felt like our faith has been hijacked by people who tend to talk about who they're against and not who they're for. And so that's what tonight is about. We're here to talk about who we're for. We're here to talk about love, kindness, empathy, advocacy. And it's not just about Kamala Harris tonight. Obviously, we want her to win and we're championing her, but it's about hope. It's about finding that joy again and coming together as a community to create change. We know that this election is so huge this year, but that's why we're choosing love for the win. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to hear all of the speakers.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And just so you folks watching know how this happened, 2 weeks ago, I'm on the White Dudes for Harris call, seeing how exciting that was, and texting with Melinda and saying, hey, where are the Christians? Maybe we should just do something like that. And you said, sure. And that was a terrifying thing because then we had to make it happen. And we
Yeah.
started calling our friends, and it turned into this beautiful gathering that we have tonight with almost 30 speakers. We've got thousands of people who are signed up, so we're just going to jump into it. A couple of things for you who are watching. The donate QR code is up. We're going to gather for three reasons tonight. We do want to raise financial resources to support the campaign, so we're going to encourage you to give as generously as you are able and to share that QR code with others so that they can do the same. We're here to volunteer for the campaign, and so there's a button on the website at christiansforkamala.net where you can volunteer locally to take part in this campaign. And that's really important because the national collective, that movement is important, but it's vital that we are in the places we are geographically close to doing that work. And then the third reason we're gathering is to commit to pray for the vice president, for Governor Walz, and for their entire team, and to partner as we go forward. There's some great organizations represented tonight, and we're all a part of something. I want this to be a launching pad, not a landing pad. So we hope this is only the beginning. So please, as you're hearing these wonderful speakers tonight, share on social media with the hashtags Love for the Win and Christians for Kamala. And one more thing I think it's important to say before we begin. This gathering is not about combining church and state. I think we all agree that we want those entities separate. We know we can't separate our personal morality from the way we vote, and we shouldn't. But we are really here to make sure that America is a place where people have freedom of religion and freedom from religion, because what we know about the Republican Party is they are for a theology of compulsion. And faith should be voluntary. It should be a choice. And we're here to celebrate giving everyone that choice.
Yes.
So, Melinda, are you ready to roll here? Should we
Let's
begin?
do it. Let's
All
get
right.
started.
Friends, our first guest tonight is a political commentator, campaign advisor, and former political candidate serving as the Women's Co-Chair and Mid-Atlantic Regional Chair at the Democratic National Committee. She served on the Asian American Outreach Team for the Joe Biden 2020 presidential campaign, and she is a dear friend who really helped make this happen. Please welcome Lindy Lee.
John, I didn't know I was going first. I'm so honored to be here. I'm sorry. I'm traveling right now. I'm heading to Chicago for the convention. So apologies for not having my camera on. Please forgive me. I just want to say how
No
incredible
worries.
John has been this entire process. And also just throughout the time that I've known him, he's just been such a good guy with a heart of gold and has a sterling character. And it's my honor to help him in whatever way I can. I just want to like give him my love and everyone. And Melinda, you are a national treasure as well. It's really such an honor to be here. I just wanted to use my time honestly to give them a shout out because they work so hard on this event and you don't even see it. It's behind the scenes. We've been working on this fundraising component. There was so much hard work that went into this that John is not telling you about. He has been working tirelessly to make this happen. And I told the campaign about his efforts and Melinda's efforts, and they are so stoked. And so I'm actually hosting the vice president in September. I look forward to having you both there. And I know she's going to be so incredibly thankful for your efforts. And I just want to say one last thing. I've been a Christian all my life. Everywhere I go, I wear my cross necklace, sometimes to great ridicule. But we live in a world of great uncertainty and turmoil and pain. My faith has been the one thing that has been with me. It's been my anchor, my sanctuary. It's just, yeah, I'm just so glad to be with you all. And thank you so much for everything. And John, thank you again. Your friendship is just unparalleled and so precious. So thank you so much.
Lindy, thank you. And we'll see you soon. Appreciate that.
Can't wait to see you.
All right, Miss Melinda.
All right. Well, Lindy, I just want to just say what you comment on something that you said. I think that now is the time for us to be proud of our faith going forward. I know sometimes we hide from wanting to say that we're Christians because of so many negative conceptions that have come with it, but now is the time to be proud of that. And the next speaker is one of those people I know is very proud of their faith and is very loud about it, and I love her for it. She's a senior minister in Middle Collegiate Church in New York City, and she's the first African-American and first woman to serve in that position, which dates back to 1628. She's a graduate of Princeton Theological Seminary and Drew University, and she's the creator of the MSNBC online show Just Faith and the PBS show Faith and Justice, in which she led important conversations about culture and current events. Dr. Lewis is an activist, preacher, and a fierce advocate for racial equality, economic justice, and LGBTQIA+ equality. Please welcome someone who I love and admire so much, Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, everyone, all my colleagues, all my people here. I'm so excited to be with you tonight and so honored to be with you. Guys, this program is called Christians for Kamala and Love for the Win. And I think I want to talk just a little bit about identity politics, right? There's a whole lot of messy talk about identity politics. But here we are, all of us who are people who say we follow Jesus in the way. We follow Jesus in the way. A baby born in the midst of a scandal, a baby whose mama was whispered about behind her back, whose father almost divorced her because, he could. A baby born in poverty, a baby born in the midst of empire, outsiderness, whose parents had to travel a long way before he was born and who didn't have a place to stay, whose mother wrapped him in bands of cloth and stuck him in a feeding trough so that he could sleep. This outsider, marginalized, Palestinian, Jewish, mixed race, Afro-Asiatic baby that God chose to manifest God's self in says something incredible about the identity of God and the identity of God's chosen one. This marginalized outsider who did not belong in the empire, who taught us that the most important commandment of all was to love our neighbor as ourselves, to love God with all we have. When I think about identity politics, friend, when I think about this movement that we're building together, where love wins, we are located inside the marginalized one. We are mentored by the outsider. We are mentored by the one who was cast out, disenfranchised, and murdered by the state for who he was and what he stood for. So as we follow Jesus in the way, and we think about what it means to be Christians in our hearts, is what my Negro spiritual would have taught me. We don't follow fascism in the way. We don't follow white supremacy in the way. We don't follow capitalism run amok in the way. We don't follow anti-Semitism in the name of the Semite in the way. We don't get to be callous about the lives of Palestinians when we're following the Palestinian in the way. We don't get to be sexist and racist in the name of the brown Palestinian poor outsider who welcomed the stranger and welcomed the women in the way. We don't get to be casual about healthcare in the name of the one who healed the broken and the sick. We don't get to be casual about economic justice in the name of the one who made sure that folks had food on the table and manifested justice. We who follow Jesus in the way, our identity has to be located in the identity of the disenfranchised, the marginalized, the ones who are not centered. We have to center the ones who are left out. We have to put in the front those who have been in the back. We have to follow Jesus's incredible reversal politics, where the first are the last and the last are the first. That's what it means for us to be Christians, for Kamala, to follow Jesus in the way. A mixed race dude, we're standing up for a mixed race woman because this is the way the world looks, and this is what calls us into being and into community. So I want to say this conversation feels like it's about Kamala, and I'm voting for Kamala, but I think this conversation is mostly, friends, about us. Those of us who yearn for the reign of God on earth, those of us who yearn for kingdom values to guide the way we live, where we live, how we spend our money, how we vote. This movement is about un pobrecito named Yeshua ben Joseph, Jesus, who was Mary's boy and Joseph's kid, who grew up to teach us only love. Let us not forget, as we move through these political seasons, whose we are and who we're called to imitate and emulate, and whose values we're called to center in these conversations. I know we can do this together because we won't forget that love is the command of the Holy One of God. Love God, love neighbor, love self, love, period. And everything else is simply commentary.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Reverend Lewis. It is just such a joy whenever you share. And something I really am grateful for is the way that you help us understand that we need to not just be about this thing that we're opposing, but what do we want to embody? And I think that's what the cry of so many of us are right now. And those who are watching who want a Christianity, want to see an expression of Christianity that is loving and embracing and inclusive and compassionate. Melinda, I'm going to have you jump to our next speaker. Absolutely. And because we had a little snafu, so we're going to switch. So if you would jump, thank you.
All right. So our next speaker, she's an American film, television, and Broadway actress and Grammy-nominated R&B singer. She starred as Mimi in Jonathan Larson's Broadway production of Rent and left Rent to record her album and expand her film career. She's had starring roles in 9 feature films and 9 series on HBO, Netflix, Fox, National Geographic, and more. She's collaborated with other musical artists and released her debut single, Hold Up, Wait a Minute, in 2015. She's passionate environmentalist with a focus on climate justice and environmental justice. She's appeared on the first album on climate change titled Home, Heal Our Mother Earth, and was Act One climate tour with the Hip Hop Caucus and sang for Pope's climate rally in Washington, D.C. She was dubbed the voice of the climate movement by Bill McKibben and is also the voice of Virgin Mobile USA. Please welcome Antonique Smith.
Thank you so much, Melinda. What a beautiful introduction. I'm so excited to be here tonight. Shout out to my sis, Anna Jane Joyner, who is the one who invited me to be here tonight, and to my bros who are speaking, my amazing bros, Rev Yearwood, Bill McKibben, and Van Jones. Y'all are going to be in for a treat hearing them. And shout out to all of the other incredible speakers. What a beautiful night in a safe space. I got saved as a 7-year-old at Bethlehem Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey. It was Easter Sunday. And when I tell you I felt God, like, changed my life, changed the trajectory of my life. And I became the little girl who was in the mall telling people about Jesus. I could stop people and just tell them about Jesus. And then over the past 5 years or so, I've actually not felt great about calling myself a Christian because I didn't want to be mistaken for the hate mongering and the anti-Christ craziness that we've been seeing. The Bible says many things, actually, that we need to take heed to. And I would like to start with Matthew 25:35 through 40. This is Jesus talking, y'all. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison or and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. That is Jesus's words. Also in Zechariah 7:10, it talks about not oppressing the widows and the orphans and the foreigners and the poor. And then most importantly, Jesus said that the commands that we are to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. And he said, there's no other commandments that are greater than these. So that to me is just major. And it's why I'm so excited to be here tonight. When Kamala found out she was getting the baton passed to her from Joe Biden, she called her pastor first, y'all. That's big. That's major because her faith is so important to her. It's her foundation as the way we all feel tonight. It's our foundation. And I've spent the last 10 years, as Melinda said, in the climate movement and the environmental justice movement. I call myself an artivist because that's how I approach my activism, is by using my voice and singing and speaking, using art. And I think using art is really, we're going to need to use a lot of art in the next few months to get Kamala across the line, because people are moved when people sing, when people, speak, when we tell stories. But she's a climate champion. And I want to quote her really quick as I wrap up. She said, we need to center environmental justice and equity in our climate policy. That means ensuring that the voices of communities who have been disproportionately impacted by pollution and climate change are heard and acted upon. She also said, the science is clear. We have a limited window to act, and we need to act boldly to confront this crisis. This is an existential threat, and it demands our immediate attention. That is our climate champion. That is why, for me, most importantly, why we need to get her into office. Now, she's obviously standing on so many things that we all agree with. She's phenomenal. But I think, our existence, pretty important. So that's why I'm so excited to be here tonight and say that I will be dancing and praising God on the way to the polls to vote for Kamala Harris in November. And I hope you all do the same. God bless everybody. Love y'all.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I love artivist. I'm going to use that. I love that as a beautiful, beautiful phrase. All right, John, who do we have next?
We're going to keep on the program that we have. Dan, I'm going to go back to the speaker who was not here yet, and we're going to go to our next gentleman, who is one of my favorite people on the planet and probably yours. He is a New York-based political commentator, comedian, TV and radio personality, performer, and writer. He has appeared frequently on news commentary shows on CNN, CSNBC, CNBC, Fox News, and NPR. Recently, he was the host of Current TV's daily show Viewpoint, where he analyzed the news and facilitated conversations about current affairs. Currently, he hosts a daily program called Tell Me Everything on Sirius XM's Insight channel. But he is a friend, and he has been someone who I am just so grateful for. Would you please welcome John Fugelsang? John, I think you're muted. Is he muted?
Thank you.
No worries.
Can you hear me okay? Hi, everybody.
Yep.
Wow, it is a great honor and pleasure to be with so many brilliant and moral and thoughtful and intelligent people, and I'm glad to be here to balance all of you out. I'm about to go on the air for Sirius XM in a little bit, but I'm here because someone broke a promise to God. My mother was a nun for 16 years before she married. She was a nurse. From the segregated South, the convent put her through nursing school and sent her off to work in Africa, to work first with lepers and then in a jungle hospital in Malawi. My dad was a Franciscan brother. He taught history to Catholic boys in Brooklyn. He wore the brown robes and the rope belt and walked amongst the people like the lost Jedi of Flatbush. My father, the brother, met my mother, the sister, fell madly in love, and eventually got her to leave. They married. and settled down on Long Island to raise us to be progressive, free-thinking Catholics, which is why I do stand-up, because I can never afford the therapy I actually need. So I grew up admiring Jesus the way anybody admires mom's first husband, but I've come to view Jesus the way I view Elvis. I love the man. Some of his fan clubs terrify me, but I actually will vote for Jesus as a write-in candidate any day, and I encourage all of our right-wing friends to do so as well. Cut out the middleman and vote for Jesus, a peaceful, radical, nonviolent revolutionary who hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks, who never spoke English, was not an American citizen, anti-wealth, completely anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer, Matthew 6:5, anti-public prayer, but never once anti-gay, never once said a thing about abortion, never called the poor lazy, never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes, never said torture's okay sometimes, and was a long-haired, brown-skinned, that's in Revelation, brown-skinned, homeless, community organizing, anti-slut shaming, unarmed, Palestinian, liberal Jew. But that's only if you believe what's actually in the Bible. And for me, I'm writing a book now called Separation of Church and Hate, about using the Bible against these Christian nationalists and fundamentalists. I think a lot of us were raised in a religion that focused on love and empathy and forgiveness and service, the values of Jesus. And millions of us have grown up to find this movement of empathy and love has been hijacked by this right-wing movement that uses Jesus's name while voting and legislating against his actual teachings and commandments. More executions, acceptable bigotries, bearing false witness, make the rich richer, reject war refugees, cut aid for the poor, live by the sword, demonize the marginalized. They say the largest growing religious group in America are Mormons. They're wrong. I think the largest growing religious group are people who were raised religious but now consider themselves spiritual because they're so turned off to the hypocrisies of our right-wing brothers and sisters who view this Jesus as just the manger, the miracles, and the cross, not the 3 years he spent teaching and giving commandments and explaining what a Christian nation would actually have to do to earn that label. For so many people, and you guys are smarter than me, you know this, the Bible for so many is like the book of Leviticus and the book of Revelation duct taped to a Left Behind book. The Christian nationalists believe our country was founded as a Christian nation and that their particular interpretation of the Bible is going to be how our government and public life has to be managed. Their narrow religious identity imposed on the rest of us. And this is the master race Christians who think they're anointed to rule America according to their take on the Bible. The Talibangelicals convinced they can be as mean as they want because they know they're going to heaven. The Christian supremacists who believe violence is acceptable if their side's doing it. And the hardcore haters convinced that God hates the same people they do. Extreme conservative religion mixed with authoritarian government is literally what killed Jesus. And Christian nationalism is taking the Bill of Rights and the New Testament out into the woods at gunpoint and digging two holes. I'm so inspired by this at a time when we see politicians try to make the abortion rate go down by making it harder for women to get birth control, where they brutalize Christian refugees who they call illegals by running razor wire through the Rio Grande, when fundamentalists believe a talking snake was literal fact, but love your enemies was just being all metaphorical, and where the Republican Party's greatest trick was getting the followers of Jesus to vote against everything Christ ever talked about by talking about abortion, which Christ never talked about. That's the right wing. Help the poor? No. Care for the sick? No. Render your taxes? No. Anti an eye for an eye? No. Be kind to the incarcerated? Hell no. Welcome the stranger? Bitch, please. I'm so glad you mentioned Matthew 25, the judgment of nations, because that's it. Jesus gives his marching orders for a Christian nation. You take care of the poor, you take care of the sick, you welcome the stranger, and you're kind to the incarcerated. That's what Christianity was supposed to be about. No abortion or trans kids, not fighting for tax cuts or teaching kids to ignore science. Jesus tells you what his true followers fight for, and that his fake followers are the ones who are openly religious, but indifferent to the poor and the marginalized and the incarcerated. I mean, he gave us Cliff Notes. He's telling us what to do. And in a time when they don't fight for the things Jesus prioritized, they fight for the things their club prioritizes. It's why I'm so proud and inspired to see people like this who are actually thumping the Bible thumpers with the Bible. Because if there's one thing I've learned, nobody hates like a Christian who's just been told his hate isn't Christian. I've gone on too long already. But thank you guys for reminding me that Christianity is supposed to be a sanctuary city. It's time to take the Bible back from the hypocrites. And if you're going to fight hate, don't whine if you get a little on you. Just wash it off before it sticks. Thank you. Go Kamala.
Thank you, my brother John. So appreciate you, and we'll be checking you out on Sirius later this evening. So, friends, I have an update. During the time that John was speaking, I got an update on our contributions that we had hit the $26,000
I hate
mark.
to interrupt, but you're wrong because it's even higher than that. I just
Go.
refreshed the page. Guess what? So as of this minute, it is now $60,000. I wanted to make sure everyone had the updated figure. Sorry about that, John.
Amazing.
No,
Amazing.
that is good stuff. Thank you, Lindy. So you are all giving generously. And please, we don't want that to stop. We want to make an impact that people understand that we're putting our money where our faith is. And that's a huge part of tonight. Also, please go to christiansforkamala.net and volunteer to work locally. And we're going to talk about the initiatives that we're going to be doing together for the rest of the evening as we go. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce someone who is a dear friend, a historian of Christianity, an advocate for progressive Christianity, a popular speaker, inspiring preacher, and award-winning author whose most recent book is called Freeing Jesus, Rediscovering Jesus as Friend, Teacher, Savior, Lord, Way, and Presence. She earned a PhD in religious studies from Duke University in 1991 with an emphasis on American ecclesiastical history, studying under George Marsden. And she is one of those people that you hear her speak and her love for Jesus and for the scriptures comes through. So I'd like to welcome tonight Diana Butler Bass.
Hi, I'm Diana Butler Bass, and I'm really excited to be on this call with you, Christians for Kamala Harris. I wish I could be with you live, but I can't be because I'm actually on a plane coming home from vacation. But it is a great privilege and honor to be here with so many great people, even by video recording, friends, colleagues, and coworkers, people that I respect and admire greatly. Many of those people will probably be issuing warnings about why it's a bad idea for Christians to vote for the other guy. And those will include things like looking at Project 2025 and how it really isn't Christian, exploring Christian nationalism, or commenting on authoritarianism. Those are really important things to talk about. But I don't really want to go that direction in these few minutes that I have with you. Instead, I just want to remind you of something very important, and that is women make up the vast majority of Christians in the United States. When it comes to church attendance, informal leadership in religious organizations, volunteering, overall participation, raising children in church, and even if you happen to be a mainline Protestant like I am, our clergy is reaching parity of male and female. Women are the backbone of Christianity in practice and on membership rolls, historically and now. And that means when we are trying to convince Christians to vote for Harris and Walz, we're talking primarily to women. It was really interesting, of course, and many of you know this, that in the last two election cycles, the majority of white Christians, white evangelical Christians, white mainline Christians, and white Roman Catholics voted for Donald Trump. And that was really disappointing to me. I expected better from people in my churches, especially, say this as bluntly as possible, especially those of you who share my faith, which is that of liberal mainline Protestantism. But even in our churches, some 52 to 58% of Christians voted for Donald Trump. And you know what? I don't want to see that this time. I want to see us really stand up for the gospel and turn our backs on a person who has been eating away at the very meaning of faith. I was reminded of all this just this past Sunday. The lectionary text, those gospel and New Testament readings that shared in liturgical churches week by week, one of the liturgical texts really stood out to me and reminded me of exactly why I'm voting for Harris and Walls. And that text, look at me, I'm going to read it to you. It's from Ephesians 4:25 through Ephesians 5:2. And it says something that is simple and straightforward and really important about this year's election. Putting away all falsehood, let all of us speak the truth to our neighbors, for we are members of one another. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not make room for the devil. Thieves must give up stealing, rather let them labor and work honestly with their own hands, so as to have something to share with the needy. Let no evil talk come out of your mouths, but only what is useful for building up, as there is need, so that your words might give grace to those who hear. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, for which you were marked with seal for the day of redemption. But put away from you all bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. And part of the reason I read those to you is I think that those women that I mentioned just a moment ago, the women who make up the majority of people sitting in church pews, that love serving dinners and lunches to homeless people, the women who are working as Sunday school teachers and toiling away as church secretaries and associate pastors, all of those women are going to be motivated so much more by that which is positive instead of that which is fearful. And if we just get out there and start screaming in just the same way we've been screamed at for the last 8 years, I think that just makes us what we had hoped we don't become. It is good to remember what is good about Christian faith. And here in Ephesians, we're reminded some very simple things, that the faith is really about morality, about how we act in the world, about the ethical positions we choose. And in that short text, we hear of things we shouldn't do and things we should do. We shouldn't lie. We shouldn't live enraged. We shouldn't steal. We shouldn't gossip and slander. We shouldn't be lost in bitterness. We shouldn't seek revenge. And we shouldn't do things that have evil intent. Instead, what people of faith, what Christians are called to do, is to speak the truth, express anger appropriately, work honestly, and to do that work on behalf of those who have less than we do, to encourage one another in love, to be kind, tender-hearted, and to forgive one another. It's not sappy. All those things that we're supposed to do are hard, and it's really tempting right now to fall into the same patterns that are all around us, patterns of lying, of being enraged, of being tempted to live into our worst selves. But in the midst of this, we're called to speak the truth, to be kind, to be honest with one another, to share with all who have less, to be tender-hearted, and to forgive one another. And when I look at that, when I read those scriptures, I thought to myself, which political candidates have the best chance to move toward this list? Because one of the things Christianity teaches is that none of us do those good things perfectly. But those are the things we strive for. And those are the things that Jesus Christ himself modeled for us. And that's how we're supposed to be. Who moves in that direction? And who is moving in the direction of not those things? I have nothing to say about why it is Donald Trump acts the way that he does. I don't understand it. But I do see evidence of the things that we're not supposed to do in his life. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris I don't know them, and I don't know their intentions. But what I do see is I see people who are striving to be better, to speak truth, to be angry about what we need to be angry about, but to express that in the right ways, that they encourage honest work, generosity to the needy, and that kindness, tenderheartedness, joy, and forgiveness are clearly part of what is becoming the political platform they're expressing. It won't be perfect, but we can do better. And I know that Christian women of all sorts want the world to be better and want us all to do better. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great evening.
Beautiful words.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Diana. And I'm going to say something to those of you who are watching. If you would do me a favor right now. Would you text or tweet or post on Facebook or on Threads? Let people know you're here and invite someone to gather with us. We really want this to be a massive, inclusive gathering where people don't have to be Christian to be here to understand and to hear our hearts, because that's part of the story. I think we can all agree that the moderate and the Christian left has often ceded the conversation on spirituality to the Republican Party. And we want to normalize being a non-Republican Christian, just someone who has the values of Jesus at the center and that they vote whichever way their heart tells them. So I'm going to encourage you to invite someone, and also to donate and to volunteer. Let's keep that going tonight. So our next speaker is an activist, press secretary, and writer. She obtained her Bachelor's of Arts from Georgetown University and served in the Army from 2005 to 2012, achieving rank of corporal. She was previously the press secretary for Rapid Response at the Human Rights Campaign and the director of communications and strategy at Catholics for Choice. In 2017, she came out as a transgender woman. She authors Charlotte's Web Thoughts on Substack. Would you please welcome the amazing and incomparable Charlotte Clymer?
Hey, folks. Thanks so much. John, that was a very lovely intro. I just want to point out, I never did make corporal. I was just a lowly specialist. But it's good to embrace our humility, though. Yeah, the Wikipedia page, it says what it says, and I
got it.
It is what
Sorry
it is.
about that.
No, don't apologize. Good evening, folks. My name is Charlotte Clymer. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so delighted to join everyone tonight, specifically because the excitement of this moment is just irresistible. And I know we can all feel it. It feels like I haven't felt like this in many, many years, especially in this Trump era, I would say. And I came here tonight because I know there are probably not a few Christians who tuned in who are still on the fence about whether or not they're supporting Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. And I really wanted to speak directly to them tonight. I constantly feel caught between two worlds. I am both a proud trans woman, and my faith is very important to me as a Christian. And what I find as I move through this world is that there are a substantial number of trans folks who are incredulous and skeptical of any trans person and any queer person going to church. And there are a substantial number of conservative Christians who feel that a trans person cannot be godly and believe in Christ's teachings. And for a long time, I think that upset me. And it took a while for me to recognize that on either side of that divide are folks who are struggling with a common issue, a common problem. And I think it comes from a deep sense of hurt and alienation and abandonment and loneliness. I went to evangelical churches earlier in my adulthood, my early 20s. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of folks who have a lot of bigotry in their hearts, that's for sure. But I also met a lot of folks who were kind, wonderful, empathetic, really wanted to do right by others. And I always wondered to myself why they were there. And it took me a long time to have the humility to realize that they were there for the same reason I was because we were searching for community and we couldn't find it. And that is the greatest strength of evangelical churches, is that they have a tendency to offer a place of belonging to folks who so desperately need it that they'll do anything just to have that connection with others. I look at these two leaders right now, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, and I have never been so taken with a presidential ticket that has two leaders who know how to have those hard conversations and meet people where they are and build bridges. And most importantly, most importantly, make people have a sense of belonging, bring them in, give them a pathway out of the darkness, out of this this very acidic culture that I think Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and all their laziness and atrophy and dark-heartedness, offer to them in exchange for that sense of community. In a way, we have a very easy job here. All we have to do is follow the example of Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. All we have to do is reach out to those folks who are going through pain and suffering and wondering why in the hell they should vote for the Democratic ticket, and give them a sense of belonging and community. Communicate to them that there is a pathway out of it, that there is a pathway for our country in which people can sit down together and have hard conversations and create that community that so many people crave but can only find in certain spaces. We have an incredible opportunity in this moment. We have a chance that Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are giving us right now to remake America. We can do that. We can spend the next 4 years, 8 years, and long after that, reshaping this country into a place where everyone has that sense of belonging. Everyone can reject evil and awfulness and alienation for something that's truer and stronger and just feels really, really damn good when you wake up in the morning and know that you're part of a community. So here's my ask to those of you who are tuning into this and not really sure where you stand. Trust us when we say that we want to build community with you. Trust us enough to come into our spaces and let us into your spaces and know that we can build that community and create a country in which no one gets left behind and no one feels lonely, and then no one ever feels like they are not American enough or they are not enough of a community member somehow. Have that trust in us and let us have that trust in you. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you, Charlotte, so much for your words. We really appreciate you. And I know those that follow you, we love the work that you do and hearing your voice online. So thank you for being here. Our next guest, I'm very excited to share with you. After playing football at Stanford University and earning a Rhodes Scholarship and a law degree from Yale, our next guest moved to Newark, New Jersey to provide legal services for low-income families and to help tenants take on slumlords so they could stay in their homes. At the age of 29, he was elected to the Newark City Council, and beginning in 2006, he served as Newark's mayor for more than 7 years. In 2013, he became the first African-American elected to the U.S. Senate from New Jersey. And for the past 10 years, he has fought to expand economic opportunity and equal justice, including leading efforts to reform our broken criminal justice system, increase wages, and ensure hard work is fairly rewarded, spur economic development, and create jobs, and also protect the rights of all Americans. Please welcome the Honorable Senator Cory Booker.
Hello, everybody. Hello, my fellow Christians. I love that hymnal we sung when I was a boy in church. They will know we are Christians by our love. By our love, they will know we are Christians by our love. I always say, before you tell me about your religion, first show it to me and how you treat other people. I really do believe that tonight we are gathered to talk about our sacred civic space. The ideals and the virtues in our faith, I believe, are also evident in the call of our country. The Declaration of Independence, those imperfect geniuses who wrote that document, yes, it reflects some of the bigotries and imperfections of the time, but it ends with that call to humanity that we as a nation will make it if we mutually pledge, if we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. I see my faith in our public spaces, the calling of our country to be there for each other when it comes to being there for the sick and the needy, for the hurt and the harmed, to stand up for justice, to stand up with the values of forgiveness, charity, and grace. I love this incredible ticket, the Harris Waltz ticket, because I see in them that kind of commitment to their fellow American, commitment to patriotism, which is love of country, but you can't love your country unless you love your fellow country, men and women. Love one another. And our policies that take care of children, that empower them with prenatal care, empower them with paid family leave, empower them with affordable childcare, that empower them with great public schools. Those values are the why I'm a Democrat. I also see that people who stand up for our party and in this election who want to see workers paid so that work has dignity, that see that they want to make sure that no one goes bankrupt because they can't afford health care, that our elders, that our seniors can retire with security and with the dignity that they too deserve. So many of those values and ideals I see in our faith, and in many ways they're on the ballot. So I am excited that we are gathering together tonight. Whenever two or three are gathered together, He is in the midst. And I know we have a challenge before us, but I do love our faith tradition. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Well, the evil is not another American or another candidate. I believe often that is in the divisions and the separation that exists between us as people. The call of our country right now is to heal, is to come together, is to work together, stand together, to forge common ground, common cause, and common purpose. I think we have leaders that can help us as a nation to rise to that level of leadership and service and love. Tonight, let's commit ourselves not to beating others, but lifting all up, not to dividing others, but to unifying all of us, not for a victory for Democrats, but a victory for the values and the virtues that at our best animate our party and our nation. I believe these two candidates that we have can be leaders who can help us on this journey towards a more perfect union. I believe that we as a nation are a promised land and can be a light unto all nations if we get it right, if we come together. I know these two candidates we have. They're evidence of, I think, an important truth. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. Let us win. Let's support them, and so that all of us can have better days tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless you.
I hope you all can feel the love in this call tonight, because that is why we are here. Our next speaker is going to continue that. Our next speaker is a deconstructed Southern Baptist and ordained interfaith minister and a spiritual mentor, helping those who are deconstructing, finding healing and spiritual clarity. Her first book, Deconstructing, Leaving Church, Finding Faith, will be out in October. Please welcome Reverend Carla Kamstra.
Can you hear me okay?
I
am so honored to be here. I'm going to try not to get emotional because the speakers have so inspired me, but I simply want to start by saying this: vote to love your neighbor. I saw that on a sign in front of a church today, and it's the perfect segue to share what is going on in my life, because I believe it has relevance for what is happening in our country today. Right now, I'm holding space between immense joy and some challenges and heartache. Joy, as just a few hours ago, I officiated the wedding of a family member. And this family member wasn't born in this country, but was naturalized through their adoption by their parents with US citizenship. And the other side of this is the heartache. And that heartache comes from holding the space for a loved one going through a mental health crisis, and literally holding them and helping them believe that they're going to be all right. And they are going to be all right, thanks to a loving safety net of family, a team of doctors, and access to health care and medicines. So as I start easing my way back into my life and what I was going to say tonight, I realized that life was once again offering me the words I needed, because Christian nationalists vilify my family member who wasn't born in this country. And Christian nationalists worship those who crafted Project 2025, a plan designed to annihilate funding for social services, including funding for mental health. This plan dismantles safety nets that many rely on, including my and your loved ones. The world looks at what is happening here in America and is horrified by the hatred and vitriol arising from Christian nationalists. But this gathering gives me hope, and no doubt it gives them hope as well, because we're letting the world know that there are millions of us who believe our faith points us to a more compassionate, loving, and kind world. A world where we work to expand life-giving resources, because when children are fed, people are housed, students have access to higher education, and we meet people where they are, we thrive, we win, and we do build a better world. So tonight, although we come from many denominations, and some of us are even unchurched, and for those of you who are here, who are like me, who are unchurched or who have deconstructed right out of that church, those church doors, you belong here. We belong here. We can reach back to our faith and claim what was good, because we understand and respect that the teachings of Jesus speak to each of us differently. And here's what I want to assure you: hate will not win. Those who came before us, those who used their Christian faith to abolish slavery, to fight fascism, to end racism, they're watching. And tonight, it's very clear. One path of Christianity leads you to Christian nationalism, where they believe if you do not look like, love like, believe like, or you weren't born in the right country, you are less than. And the other path leads to a Christianity that is inspired by the teachings of Jesus. And that's where you find all of us holding hands with the amazing rainbow and diversity of our humanity. Beautiful souls, we are not going back. Vote to love your neighbor. Thank you.
Reverend Carla, thank you so much. Fantastic. I just wanted to check in. Melinda, how are you feeling? What's going on in your head? What are you thinking about?
I'm overwhelmed, but I'm so hopeful. I'm overwhelmed just because there's so many incredible people on this call, and I know we all want to make a difference, and you can just feel it. There's a different energy for sure. So I hope everyone's feeling that energy, because it's firing me up for sure.
Indeed. And just so you all know about our speakers, they all come here. They've given their time. They're not being paid for any of this. Every donation is 100% of it's going directly to the campaign. This is just a labor of love. And after this event, you'll be able to watch all the speakers separately. You'll be able to watch this event in whole, and you'll be able to continue to give and donate all the way up to the election. What's really striking to me as I've been listening is that we get to be what I would call expectation-defying Christians. To a group of people who think they know what Christianity is, think that it's this exclusionary, predatory, hateful thing. We get to surprise people, and that's what we're inviting people in to imagine what people of faith can do when they are really committed to the heart of Jesus. So I'll let you take it from here, Melinda.
All right. So our next speaker is a minister and a community activist and currently serves as the president of the Hip Hop Caucus, a national nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that empowers young people to participate in elections, policymaking, and service projects. He's later been involved in a number of high profile campaigns to engage young voters and worked on human rights issues in the Gulf Coast region after Hurricane Katrina. Please welcome Reverend Lennox Yearwood.
Thank you so much, Melinda. So much, John. Man, it's so good to see some of our friends, Charlotte and Jim Wallace and Bill McKibben and the amazing Antonique Smith. Man, I tell you, y'all done brought them together here. This is phenomenal. Listen, let me be very clear. This moment we're in, this is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. This is that moment right now. And what I mean by that is that our parents in the 20th century fought for equality. They fought so that that same lunch counter that a Kamala Harris could not sit at back then, that we came together as Black, white, brown, red, male, female, straight, gay. We came together then to overcome that so that right now in the 21st century, we can now move from the same Kamala Harris who couldn't sit at the lunch counter can now sit in the White House. And that's the progress of what faith is. And so we are also at a moment, though, that we understand that while we fought for equality in the 20th century, we are now fighting for existence in the 21st century. Let me say this. As many of you know, I was a former chaplain in the U.S. Air Force. And in that time, like a person of faith, had to make a decision if I would speak out against the war in Iraq. It wasn't an easy decision. It was one that took a lot of prayer, a lot of thought. And I spoke out. And at that point in time, my government pushed back against me, said that I was doing conduct unbecoming an officer, that I was not in the position to be a chaplain. At that time, I was in a position doing the funerals from Arlington Cemetery and being stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. I went up there to the General Petraeus hearing, and many of you have seen the footage back in 2007. And in doing that, I was beaten in the hallways of Congress. My leg was shattered. I sat on that floor, literally my leg broken and my heart broken as somebody who signed up to fight for this country, not for Republican or Democrat, but just to make sure that we can have a place in a country we can be proud of. But I can tell you in that moment, I never forget it. Out of nowhere, I heard the chant that said, "Arrest Bush, not Rev." Arrest Bush, not Rev. And I can tell you, I feel that same moment now, that when you're literally not understanding of how this country can move forward, God provides a ram in the bush. A month ago, we were all despondent back in July 12th. But now a month later, we are literally moving forward. We have power now in our veins. And this moment now means something. So I just want to tell all those who are listening and watching, give like you have never given before. And also let me say this in regards to my dear sister, Kamala Harris, who went to my school at Howard University. Let me say this in this moment that we're in now. We're in a moment that people are counting on us as people of faith to stand up. Right now, with our climate, our economy, how we treat one another, children are watching. And so this is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. Let us do all we can to ensure that we can get past that line and ensure that Kamala Harris and Vice President Walz are not moving from the lunch counter, but sitting in the White House. Come on. Hallelujah. Let's get it, y'all. Come on now. Come on. Somebody to wake up. Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen.
Wow. Reverend, thank you so much. What a joy to have you with us, and what an electrifying message. I'm going to break in here. I have some Bad news for our friend Lindy Lee, because Lindy is responsible. She has taken on the job of updating your contributions and sending those updates to me. And they've been coming in so fast that she said she can barely tabulate them. So I'm going to give you an update. We are currently at $95,000 in contributions. Thank you so much. That's a great start. So just get warmed up and keep spreading the word. And we're going to have a great message now from a dear friend. He is a New York Times best-selling author of Keeping Faith, Crazy for God, and over a dozen fiction and nonfiction books, a religious reform activist, and a regular guest commentator on The Readout on MSNBC with Joy Reid. He has been a frequent guest of Rachel Maddow and Christiane Amanpour, who is sought after for his perspective on national and world news events. He is the host of In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer on YouTube and Apple Podcast, and on his political and religious commentary series, It Has to Be Said, which can be accessed at frankschaeffer.substack.com. Please welcome Frank Schaeffer.
Hi, this is Frank Schaeffer. I am an author and a commentator. And I want to thank my friend John and the others at Christians for Kamala Harris for the opportunity to speak a little bit about some things that maybe my age, for once, gives me an advantage to understand. I celebrated my 72nd birthday. And I want to tell people who think that Christians have always been right-wing Republican thugs that that's not the case. Let me tell you one little story that I'll share with you from my own experience. Back when my father, Francis Schaeffer, and I were highly involved in the anti-abortion movement in the 1970s and 80s, that unfortunately we helped get going with the film series, Whatever Happened to the Human Race, and the book and the national tour with C. Everett Koop, the Surgeon General under Ronald Reagan, were responsible for at that time. Our big fight wasn't with the, quote, secular humanists or the National Organization of Women or Planned Parenthood. It was with Christian leaders, real Christian leaders, like the Reverend Billy Graham or the editorial board of Christianity Today magazine, or the president of the Southern Baptist Convention at the time, who was also the pastor of First Baptist in Dallas. Our fight was with them because they would not join our cause. Why? Well, one afternoon when my dad was undergoing chemotherapy treatments at Mayo Clinic for his cancer that he died of in 1984, we visited with the Reverend Billy Graham, and he was in the Methodist hospital that the week before my dad and I had picketed because they did abortions, and Dad stayed in St. Mary's Hospital across the street because he said, well, they're Catholic and so they don't do abortions and we don't agree with their theology, but at least they're correct on this issue. Well, we crossed the street to meet with the Reverend Billy Graham, the evangelist, to beg him to join our anti-abortion cause, and he refused because he said, my role as a minister of the gospel is to preach the love of Jesus, not to condemn people. And why would I single women out for special attention when all of us fall short on so many levels? In other words, he had the Christian message. Now, I mention that because everybody assumes that somehow it's normal that evangelical, white evangelical Christians support Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Well, it's not normal. Billy Graham would not have, even though his son Franklin has betrayed his parental heritage and become this hard-assed activist on the far right. In fact, Franklin Graham went so far as to put a target on the back, almost literally, of the 10 Republicans in Congress who voted to impeach Donald Trump against him, and said that they were traitors. He actually used that term, for which people can be executed. And of course, that's serious when you are talking to a mob of people who show up a little while later on the Capitol steps with a noose ready to hang the vice president, who's also a Christian. So what I want to say today is that Christians can stand up for what is right in this next election. And we can stand for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who has been accused of being a liberal because he provided free food for children in schools. He's accused of being a liberal because he provided sanitary products for high schoolers who couldn't finish high school because they couldn't afford the products and were staying home out of shame because they couldn't come to high school. He viewed his role as being a leader that helped people. Wow, isn't that an idea? Sounds weirdly Christ-like to me. And when Kamala Harris says that she will stand up for women and for our privacy rights and for our rights to be the kind of Americans that, by the way, just field these incredible intergenerational and multicultural and multiracial teams to the Olympics and won because of the strength of our diversity, that's the world she represents, the strength of our diversity, the strength of our unity. And the Republicans represent a kind of a backward misogyny that even back in the 1970s, Billy Graham wouldn't go for. Let's go back to the religion of Billy Graham, if you want to put it that way, and not his son Franklin, who is on the side of these fascist oligarchs, wading in to change our country and strip it of its democracy, to roll it into some sort of theocracy. That's not the vision of Christianity. That's not the vision of some of the people who made Christianity strong in America, like Billy Graham, my family friend. That's the vision of people who fundamentally, like Donald Trump, are at heart anti-Christian. My name is Frank Schaefer.
Thank you, Frank. Just what an amazing perspective on where we've been and how this is not just something that happened overnight, and really just important, powerful stuff. How about another update? We're going to say we are now at $98,000 in contributions. So keep that generosity going, and please give as generously as you can. It's so important in the work that we're doing. And please go to christiansforkamala.net and volunteer locally, because that's where this is really going to happen, where the incremental change that needs to happen will take place. Dan, I'm going to ask you. Dan Deitrich is with Common Good Media. He has been doing all the work technically to make this happen, and I just want to thank him. Dan, we're going to go to that documentary clip. Through the last week, we've been introduced to so many amazing people, and Kristen Irving is one of them. She has created a film called True Believer, and it's been picked up in the United Nations Film Festival, and many of you are going to be seeing it very soon, but we wanted to give you a sneak peek today. So here's a clip from True Believer.
I thought Christians had always been pro-life, and the biggest shock to me was discovering that they weren't.
Listen, you can disagree with everything I would believe, but I promise you this is true. Until very recently, this was not part of your faith. When we went around talking people into taking a stand on abortion, we had several fights. We sat down with Billy Graham 3 times in person. Billy was saying, I don't believe abortion should be illegal. We're not taking rights away from women. Why would we do that? He says, are you telling me that if I make this an issue at my evangelistic rallies, more people will accept Jesus? What about the women who disagree with me? His priority was saving people for Jesus, for the church, getting them out of hell. That was the reaction we got. Abortion is not an issue in the evangelical world at that time. They think abortion should be legalized.
In 1971, the Southern Baptist Convention passed a resolution calling for the legalization of abortion, a resolution they reaffirmed in 1974 and again in 1976. Jerry Falwell, by his own admission, did not preach his first anti-abortion sermon until February of 1978, more than 5 years after the Roe v. Wade decision.
Abortion is not a Roman Catholic issue. It is a moral issue. It is a theological issue. It is a human rights issue, an issue that concerns the human rights of unborn babies who, by the hundreds of thousands, are being murdered.
So that's a clip from True Believer, and want you to look out for that. Thank you to Kristen Irving for sharing that with us. Our next speaker, friends, is a pastoral counselor. Our next speaker was elected to the Texas House of Representatives in 2018 to represent District 52, which includes the cities of Round Rock, Taylor, Hutto, and Georgetown in Williamson County. Following the 2020 redistricting cycle, he announced his run for a seat in District 50 in 2022, which he won. He is a member of the Democratic Party. His use of biblical scripture to tear down conservative Christian arguments recently went viral, and if you don't know his name, you will recognize his face, and it's been glorious to watch that. So let's give a great welcome to Representative James Del Tallarico.
Thank you so much, John. I didn't think I'd be following Jerry Falwell on this call, but it's great to be here with all of you, and it's a true honor because there are some of my favorite activists, authors, preachers on this Zoom, and so it's one of those pinch me moments in life. Thank y'all for having me. So as John mentioned, I am a Christian. I'm also a legislator. Growing up, my church here in Texas taught me that Jesus only gave 2 commandments: love God and love neighbor. And I was taught that Christianity is both spiritual and political, because politics is just another word for how we treat our neighbors. And so as a legislator, I've passed bills to lower the cost of prescription drugs, expand access to childcare, reform our justice system, and fund our neighborhood public schools. Through public policy, I try my best to make life just a little easier for my neighbors. But as y'all can imagine, loving thy neighbor in the Texas legislature is not easy. And when things get hard, I fall back on my faith. In my second term, I enrolled in seminary to follow Jesus's first commandment, to love God. As a seminarian and a lawmaker, I'm just starting to understand how these 2 commandments sustain, challenge, and enrich each other in inner life and in outer life. And as I was sitting at this intersection of faith and politics, Christian nationalism reared its ugly head at the state capitol. A bill to force every teacher to display the 10 commandments, a bill to replace school counselors with untrained religious chaplains, a bill to defund public schools to subsidize private Christian schools. And actually, I just got home from a hearing where we were debating the new state reading curriculum that teaches Bible stories as historical fact. So for a lot of my friends on this call in blue states, Project 2025 is a theoretical possibility. But for the Texans on this call, for the Christians who live in red states, it is happening. It is happening to us. It is happening to our neighbors. It is happening to our communities. The architects of Project 2025 are using states like Texas as a laboratory to develop these ideas before they take them nationwide. And I have tried, as John said, to lead the fight against these bills on the House floor here in Texas, because on my first day in office, I put my hand on the Bible and swore an oath to the Constitution, not the other way around. I'm a Christian, but I know the most dangerous form of government is theocracy, because the only thing worse than a tyrant is a tyrant who thinks they're on a mission from God. And so my faith in Jesus leads me to reject Christian nationalism and commit myself to the project of a multiracial, multicultural democracy where we can all freely love God and fully love our neighbors. And that same faith leads me to support Vice President Harris to be the next president of the United States. Thank you all so much for having me. It's an honor to be in this fight with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. And I personally want to thank you for just being an example of a progressive Christian voice that is leading and is in leadership and using your platform for good. So thank you so much, James. Our next speaker is known around the world as a singer-songwriter. You may have heard him on Bethel Music albums or as the co-host on the Liturgist podcast. His songs are sung in house of worships all around the globe, and he's appeared at the top of Billboard charting Christian albums and has garnered well over 120 million streams. He seamlessly blends his music, cinematography, and political messaging around anti-racism, anti-voter suppression, and climate change, and they've all been highlighted by CNN, Relevant, Think Progress, and Yahoo. Please join me in welcoming William Matthews.
Hey, everyone. It's so good to be a part of this. Thank you to John and to Melinda and to Anna Jane Joyner and everyone that's been a part of putting this amazing call on. I don't know about you guys. I'm super inspired already. I mean, Cory Booker, y'all. I mean, can we believe that Cory Booker was just here a moment ago? Like, I love that man. And I love how much he loves this country and how he's always instilling in us a sense of love of each other and reminding us of our love for each other. But also shout out to all the amazing speakers that are on this call. I can't wait to hear what so many of you have to say. A lot of you I've been following for years, and I'm low-key a fan of. I wanted to share really quick why I have hope and why Kamala Harris gives me hope. In 2017, I was privileged to do some advocacy, some climate advocacy in Capitol Hill. I went with a bunch of friends that were podcasters, Christian musicians, preachers, influencers, journalists. I was there with Caitlin Beatty, Propaganda the rapper, Mike McHargue from the Liturgist podcast, Jonathan Martin, the speaker. It was a bunch of us, and we went to do climate advocacy. And I remember going to Capitol Hill in April 2017. And I don't know if you guys remember what was going on in April 2017. We were 4 months into the Trump presidency. And just that feeling, that depressing feeling that was hanging over the nation, but let alone DC at the time, was really palpable. It was really real. And we would walk through the halls of Congress and go to different office reps, and we go to Senate reps. And the more we kept going, the more exhausted we all became, the more dreary, the more tired we became. It was a long day. We're meeting with heads of staff. I remember getting in a heated discussion with Lindsey Graham's head of staff about climate policy and Obama's Green Climate Fund that was really messy and just feeling like we're not making any headway. Long story short, we walked into the then new Senator Kamala Harris's office. I had voted for Kamala because, she was the obvious choice. I live in California, Los Angeles. She was clearly the choice. Oftentimes it's Democrats against Democrats out here, right? But yeah, she was the choice. But I didn't know a ton about her. I knew very, very little. But I know what I felt when I walked into her office. And what I felt was the inescapable presence of joy. And we didn't even meet her, which is funny. But you could feel this sense in this office that hope was happening. There was something hopeful happening. And we got to meet with the staff. And I remember looking to my friend Prop and Mike, and I just remember, I was like, I think this woman's headed to the White House. I don't know why, just this sense. I was like, she's headed to the White House, and I got to learn everything that I can about her. And that's what I did. And anybody that's been in my life the last 5-6 years have known I have been low-key obsessed with Kamala Harris. I've been reading everything I can, listening to podcasts, books, good, bad, and ugly, because I just felt like that feeling I felt on Capitol Hill that day was priceless. And I knew it was because she had a staff that she poured into, that what she represented was that powerful. And that's what I felt. And so I also then realized I had a shared common ancestry, spiritual ancestry with Kamala Harris, which was really wild. And if you guys haven't read Get the Truth We Hold, it's her book. It's really great. A friend gifted this to me in 2019. And I'll just say this. In the book, she writes about her faith upbringing, which a lot of people don't talk about her being a woman of faith. She says, on Sundays, our mothers would send us off to 23rd Avenue Church of God, piled with other kids in the back, and of Miss Shelton's station wagon. My earliest memories of the teachings of the Bible were of a loving God and a God who asked us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves and to defend the rights of the poor and the needy. This is where I learned that faith is a verb. I believe we must live our faith and show faith in action. And it's a little just blurb, and she talks about how her and Maya sang in the children's choir. I actually Googled that church and found out that that church, 23rd Avenue Church of God, is a part of the same affiliation Church of God that I grew up in, one based out of Anderson, Indiana. Those, it's very evangelical, very Midwest. It's all over the country. But it was just a cool little signifier to me of oftentimes with politicians, we don't treat them as people with moral consciousness, because we oftentimes throw our own rage and our own issues at them. But it was good to know that Kamala Harris came from a deep tradition, one that I recognize, one that I felt kindred to, one that gave me that same sense, and also one that gave me a sense of joy. And I recognize that same joy in her that I felt in my youth with the beautiful Black men and women that raised me spiritually. I think that's ultimately what I've been connecting to and sensing. And I think we all can say that when she took the nomination, it was like a breath of fresh air. And I know so many people who weren't even engaged in politics, who really have been checked out, who started texting me and emailing and saying, wait, something's going on. I actually care now. I want to pay attention now. So I'm really excited to be a part of this call and to support Christians for Kamala. Let's do more of these. If I can leave you with one thought moving forward, I believe that it's important for us to move from outrage and clickbait and to trust and partnership, not only with this new campaign, but also this new administration, because I believe it's about to be in a whole administration. And we have an ally in the White House. In Kamala Harris, women have an ally, Black Americans have an ally, LGBT people have an ally, Indian Americans have an ally, climate activists have an ally, Jewish folks have an ally, and yes, I believe even Palestinian folks have an ally in this campaign and also this administration. And how we speak to our allies matter. We don't just throw the kitchen table at our allies. I think we have to get wise about how we protest and when we protest. And I also think when we are building allyships, we're not creating moments of outrage, but we're setting a table for dialogue as if we're welcoming a friend. And I really think we have a friend in this White House in a way that we've never seen before. And I think there's a way that she envisions power that we have yet to even conceptualize. So I'm excited for this ticket, and I'm excited for all of you. Let's donate, 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 and give to this fund. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much, William. I love those words. And on that note, John, do we have an update?
We have two updates. Actually, the text that I just received from Lindy Lee was from campaign officials. One said, incredible. The other said, we're getting the alerts. The phone won't stop buzzing. And we are now up to $108,000, $108,080. So you guys are just knocking it out. So thank you so much for giving in this way. This is just incredible. I'm really excited to share and introduce our next speaker. The first time I saw her, it was within a couple of seconds. I was just riveted to everything that she had to say. So much wisdom and passion. And she is a pastoral counselor, an international speaker on issues related to gender equity. Her TED Talks have had over 9 million views. She also serves as Mayor Pro Tem in Lyons, Colorado. Would you please welcome Paula Stone Williams?
Thank you so much, John. And it's been wonderful just listening to everybody and the excitement, the joy. What a difference. It's a good time, I think, and I'm hopeful about the future. So last year, 592 anti-transgender laws were introduced in state legislatures throughout the United States. 90 of them were signed into law in over 20 different states. Who was driving those laws? Well, of course, it was Republican legislatures, but people assume it was Republicans. Well, two studies show us it was not Republicans per se driving those laws, because 61% of Republicans believe transgender people should have the same civil rights as everybody else. So who was driving those laws? Who is still driving those laws? Oh, it is the people I grew up with. It is the people who taught me about Jesus. It is the people to whom I preached. It is evangelical Christians, 87% of whom believe that gender is immutably determined at birth. 67% of whom believe we already give too many civil rights to transgender people. And yet only 31% of whom actually know someone who's out as a transgender person. You know, I'm convinced the only way we change the narrative is to change the narrative. We are a narrative-based species. We don't sleep without dreaming. You don't dream in mathematical equations, you dream in stories. We need to hear each other's stories. We need to listen. And we need to help each other see that we all just want to hope in a good future. So I don't worry about myself. I mean, whatever happens, I'll be fine. I'm older than dirt, and I will not live long enough to lose my white male entitlement. That's the truth. I serve as mayor pro tem here in Lyons, Colorado. I have no difficulties here. I'm not concerned about me. Oh, my friends, it's the kids. It's the kids. Do you know transgender children have a suicide completion rate 13 times higher than their peers? So just yesterday, I got a call from grandparents in New England asking if I would talk to their daughter in Tennessee about her child who needs medical care and cannot receive it in Tennessee. My coworker, a licensed counselor, just today saw two transgender children who came here because of the medical care that's available to them here in Colorado that's not available where they came from. I'm frightened for the children, but now I have hope. So I was talking to my granddaughter. I have 5 granddaughters, and 3 of them are children of color. And one was saying to me just not long ago, she said, Grandpaula, she calls me Grandpaula, they all do. And she said, Grandpaula, are we going to be okay? Well, she happens to be African American and Indian. And I said, well, I mean, until you can become president, I think we probably can be in the good hands of the other African American and Indian person I trust, Kamala Harris. She grinned big and she said, I know. And I said, yes, Trista, I know. But it ain't going to happen unless we give. It's not going to happen unless we tell our stories. It's not going to happen until we take every opportunity we can to talk to every neighbor we can and begin a conversation. It's not going to happen without you. So yes, I hope you will give, and I hope you will give again and again and again. And I hope you will take every opportunity you have, and you will remember the children, all those kids who have every right to live an authentic life, because the call toward authenticity is sacred and holy and for the greater good. And I, for one, want a president and a vice president who believe the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paula. There's my video, sorry. All right, well, our next speaker is an American environmentalist, journalist, educator, author, and Christian activist who's written extensively on the impact of global warming. This former Sunday school teacher writes passionately about the spiritual underpinnings of his desire to save the planet. He's the Schumann Distinguished Scholar of Middlebury College and the co-founder and senior advisor of the International Climate Campaign Group 350.org. Please welcome Bill McKibben.
Well, Melinda, thank you so much. What a pleasure to get to be with you all and to see dear, dear old friends, my brother, Reverend Yearwood, my sister, Antonique Smith, to see old friends like Jim Wallace and Brian McLaren and Diana Butler Bass and so many other people here. Now, I have the least claim on being here of any of you. I've never risen higher in the Methodist hierarchy than Sunday school teacher. And even that at a, rural church so tell on Christmas Eve and turn a 4th grader into a Palestinian shepherd, that's basically you're in, so. But there are times when being a Sunday school teacher might be kind of useful because you're used to thinking about things in simple terms. And this election couldn't be much more simple. Look, it says there on the very first page of the good book, and the Bible is one of those books, I'm afraid, that a lot of people may not get too far past the first page, but there it says that our job is to protect the earth. That's the first thing we're told to do, to take good care of this place. And Donald Trump has promised that on day 1 in office, he will drill. He will do everything he can to service his clients in the fossil fuel industry. when you get to the gospel, as Antonique was reading earlier, we're told a few very simple things about um, feeding the hungry, about welcoming a stranger. Donald Trump has promised that he will set up deportation camps in this country and deport 10 million people. People were holding signs at the Republican National Convention that said mass deportation now. How hard is this? That is the literal opposite of welcoming the stranger. So it seems to me that our job couldn't be clearer. And this call is going great tonight, but I think you all have to be doing an even better job of taking up the offering here, because we need every penny we can to make sure that this election comes out the right way. Here's a challenge. I organized Elders for Harris Call a couple of weeks ago, for Third Act, where we organize Americans over the age of 60, and we raised $250,000 in the course of the evening. So there's even more Christians in America than there are old people. So, step it up. Because I don't want to just have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win this election. I got to say, I want them to crush Donald Trump in this election, because I think that's the only chance of breaking the fever that has gripped the country I love for the last 10 years. And not only is that necessary for all kinds of reasons about public policy, not only is that necessary the practical purpose of loving one's neighbor, but I think it's also necessary for a defense of Christianity in America in the 21st century. Because truthfully, we have allowed the name of Christ to be taken by a group of people who are not paying attention to what the gospel says. A document that calls for love and sacrifice and service is being used in the name of grievance and power and hatred. And it's reached the point where I'm always amazed that any young person in this country decides that they might ever want to become a Christian. Because why would you, when you look around at what it's come to mean in the world around us? We have some chance of breaking that spell come November, some chance of breaking that evil enchantment that we have been living under. But only if we not just win this election, but win it so decisively that people decide that it's time to think newly about where we are. That's what Kamala Harris represents, some chance to think new thoughts, some chance to break out of the bind that we have been in. It's an unholy bind, and it is time to get out of it and get out of it now. So I'll just end by saying, give some money. In fact, give a lot of money. The planet is outside its comfort zone. That's what it means when the poles start melting. Our democracy is outside its comfort zone. That's what it means when people invade the nation's capital and kill police officers in order to stop the counting of votes. Well, if the planet's outside its comfort zone and our democracy is outside its comfort zone, then you need to be outside your comfort zone. You need to be doing more than we have done so far. So that's the news from Sunday school, and I'm going to turn it back over to the professionals now and just say enormous thanks to everybody who organized this call, including my old dear friend Anna Jane Joyner. Y'all are doing the Lord's work tonight, and many, many thanks for it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Melinda, real quick, I just wanted to jump in. Friends, I wanted to thank you for your patience, even our speakers. You know, this is a huge group to corral, and we're trying to stay on time. We're running a little bit late, but you know what? Goodness doesn't have a deadline. By the way, I was out of my chair. I did not want you to think I was raptured. So let's move right along. Melinda, take it from here.
All right. So our next speaker is a writer, teacher, American theologian, political activist, and a New York Times best-selling author, and also a tireless voice for justice. I want to welcome Jim Wallis.
Friends, friends, friends. These voices are making me feel very grateful because the faith factor, there will be a faith factor in this election. There will be a faith factor, and it could be decisive. Now, the Christian nationalists want to be the faith factor, but what I'm hearing tonight is that we can change that. We can change that. We can change what the nation hears about faith, because this election is a test of democracy. We all know that. It's also a test of faith, a test of faith. So they're going to hear what faith is going forward, and we can shape that with the voices we're hearing tonight. All of you listening, you can change that. Jesus said, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And what he says there, really, he means the opposite of truth isn't just lying, it's captivity. Freedom and truth are indivisible. A lot of people are captive out there to bad religion, false religion. How do we set our people free? Jesus says that the peacemakers are the ones that get to be called the children of God. We have to go to the text again and again. So I want, Bill says give. I want you to give. I want you to give. I want you to volunteer. But I want one more thing. We have to have a conversation about faith in our churches this fall. Maybe a debate about faith. Let's bring Jesus into the conversation. So all kind of Black churches have sister relationships with white churches. A lot of Black pastors I'm talking to are saying to their white sister churches, okay, let's have a conversation this fall between our churches about faith, about Jesus. What did Jesus say? What did he mean? You're hearing it all over the call tonight. What did Jesus say and what did he mean? Let's have that conversation this fall. And if you don't have the conversation, you might not see our choir in February. It's a whole different conversation. We can have this fall a debate about faith. So I want to encourage you on this call to really go to churches and go to ones that you're not maybe in relationship to. And let's have a conversation about what faith means. I love the first chapter of the first book of the Bible, Genesis 1:26, and assume all the noise surrounding us, all the pundits and pollsters, assume all that noise that floods our heads. I love the way that text starts. It says, in the middle of all the noise, then God said, like, be quiet, noise. Then God said. And the next line says, let us create humankind in our own image and after our own likeness. All humankind after our own image and after our own likeness, which means that any attempt to suppress a vote, deny a vote, not count a vote, intimidate a vote because of someone's skin color or who they are is really an assault on Imago Dei, on the image of God. So I want to say tonight, we're here to support political candidates, and I support them both. I know them both and support them both. But this is for us theological. It's about the image of God. Whether the image of God will be respected in our voting, in our processes. There's a lot of fear and hatred and violence going on. And we have to assert the image of God, the Imago Dei. So this is a call to raise funds and get volunteers. But let's say we're going to be the Imago Dei movement in this election. Let's bring faith to bear. Let's have that conversation with our churches. And let's understand that the Good Samaritan parable about the other helping the one other to him, that may be the road to multiracial democracy. So let's go to the text. Go to the text again and again and again this fall. Go to the text and ask, what does it mean for people of faith to follow Jesus and vote those values in this election? So this call makes me think that we, all of you, can change the faith factor in this election. Don't give it to the Christian nationalists. Bring it back to the faith. We've all been proclaiming all night long. We can change the faith factor. Amen? I hear an amen?
Amen. Thank you so much, Jim. Well, let's keep going. Our next speaker is a well-known U.S. media personality with a track record of bringing people together. He is currently a CNN political commentator, an Emmy Award-winning producer, and a 3-time New York Times best-selling author. Please welcome my friend Van Jones.
Hey, it's Van Jones. Doesn't it already feel like a miracle? Doesn't it already feel like a miracle? I just want to say and add my voice to the many other Christian voices. This joy that we're feeling, this joy that's sweeping the country, you know, it has a resonance with the kind of joy that is found in the best of the Christian church, and the Black church in particular. You know, happiness is an external thing. Happiness has to do with things going well on the outside. Joy is something that comes from within, no matter what the circumstances are. No matter what has been done to you or what is being contemplated, we can still say hallelujah anyhow in the Black church and in the Christian church. We can say hallelujah anyhow. You're not going to get us down. You're not going to steal our joy. You're not going to convince us that we're anything other than the children of a high God. And that faith and that joy and that soul has sustained us for a long time in the spiritual domain, in the religious domain. It is so beautiful to see part of that spilling out, that spirit spilling out now into the secular world, into the political world, in a way I haven't really ever seen before. And it's appropriate that Kamala Harris is the source of that and recipient of that and the cause of that and at the effect of that, because her agenda is to stand for what Jesus called the least of these. The addicted, the convicted, the afflicted, the evicted, all those people who Jesus said we would be judged by how we treat them. Her agenda is about treating those people with dignity, with respect, with hope, with opportunity. And it's an exciting time for people of faith to step forward. And we shouldn't be shy to say that we come to this with a particular perspective, and that there may be people in our faith who don't share this particular perspective, and that's perfectly fine. But for those of us who take seriously the social gospel, who take seriously the idea that we have to deal with the least of these, Kamala Harris is a fantastic representative of that, and she's a tribune for that, and she's an instrument for that, and we can support her with our heads held high in that. And I just wanted to add my voice. I've known Kamala Harris for 25 years. I voted for her for district attorney in San Francisco when I lived there. I voted for her for attorney general. I voted for her for senator. I voted for her for vice president. And I am proud to be voting for her prayerfully, and happily, and joyously for president of the United States.
Thank you, Van. Appreciate those words. Friends, I am so excited to introduce our next speaker. We met each other years ago. She is an author, an activist, and founder of the nonprofit organization Free Mom Hugs, which shows love and acceptance to LGBTQ plus people all over the country. She is now ubiquitous in this nation wherever good work is being done. Let me welcome Sarah Cunningham.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm telling you, when I got the invitation to be here, I was so excited because this is something that I love talking about, the journey between fear and ignorance and love and education. And if I could just come to you tonight as a wife, a mother, a woman of faith, and an advocate, and just share the lessons that I've learned in a very short amount of time. But before that, you need to understand that I'm probably the least politically minded person you will ever meet. I was raised to believe that, I should never talk about money, should never talk about sex or question authority. And that caused a lot of problems in my life. And it was a quick journey from the church to the Pride Parade without losing my faith, without losing the relationship with my child. So the journey that took us there, I had to learn a lot of lessons, some a very hard way, but I learned about this beautiful spirit-filled community of the LGBTQ people, and the journey that allowed me to understand laws that affect families like mine. And it was a wake-up call and of the very, very difficult time. But I want to share with you in a journey from 2016, just weeks before the election. There was a lot of fear and anxiety going on between the moms with gay kids and the community, and there's just a lot of uncertainty surrounding the election. And I remember, like you, probably where you were and who you were with the night that we got that news that Donald Trump was our president. And I remember a couple of moms and we got the Free Mom Hugs banner and we went down to our gay district, 39th Street here in Oklahoma City. And I made a social media post. I let the people know that we were going to be down there, and we set up an empty parking lot. And we had cars lined up of grown adults, people coming out of the bars and the venues just to get hugs, yes, but more than that, just affirmation and encouragement that we're going to stick this through together. We're going to figure this out. We're going to help each other and support each other. And there was a camaraderie there that carried us through 2016. And then there was another pivotal moment in my life that in 2017, it was Gay Days at our baseball field. And this is where they let people in of the community, and they had themed songs, and there were young people there carrying around their pride flags, and it was a beautiful night. I'm pretty sure we were winning. And a couple of moms and I were there again with the banner, and it was beautiful. But I noticed that there was a group of people over by the food trucks about my age. They were looking at us like they were just disgusted with us. And I call them scoffers. And I pulled up the definition of scoffer. I know you already know this, but I want to remind you. A scoffer is a person who makes fun of someone or something, often of religion or moral values, who acts with arrogant pride. Does that sound familiar? Someone we know? Uh, but at that moment, there was a time that I probably would have gone up and talked to these people. I would have tried to have a dialogue with them. But at that moment, I heard a voice in my mind, I believe it's the power of the Holy Spirit, say, Sarah, you're not here for the scoffers. You're here for this beautiful community and to celebrate and empower them. And since then, I just focused all my attention on pouring into the community and their families. And that's when we began to see real fruit. And I remember going home that night being really empowered and at peace. And again, that sense of connection and camaraderie. And so we went through a lot of uncertainty, and now fast forward, here we are, 2024, at the threshold of 2025. And all of a sudden, I didn't even realize how discouraged I was until this new political arena came before us. And I feel like I had to write it down. It says, we stand at the threshold, a platform of this administration that, listen, it's a new day. It's a new dawn, the year of Aquarius, whatever you want to call it. But I thought of the year of Jubilee. Now, you church people will recognize that language. I had to look that up too. but it's a time of refreshing. I started thinking about how I look differently now at the American flag, don't you? And patriotism and freedom and the cross. I had a wooden cross hanging down from my rearview mirror, but there was a time I took it down because I felt guilty by association. It never changed my faith. In fact, my faith, my fellowship of believers, the participating in the faith, all of that has grown so much stronger in this new arena. But here we are at the threshold of reclaiming, renewing, and really real joy. And I feel it. I know you do too. And I believe it's a time of jubilee, of reclaiming our freedom, reclaiming America. And I want to go out with this. I believe that the Harris-Walz administration has a vision for the future of this country. I believe that they are equipped to be effective, they have integrity, and they will bring about the right kind of change that we've all been wanting, but we just didn't have the courage or the platform to stand up and do something, because we all want to do something. Well, now is our time. And I do believe that they are fully capable and in favor of separating church and state, one that embodies the values of love, justice, equality, and the need to move forward. And I believe that under their leadership, we can see a Jubilee year come to life, a year where every person, regardless of who they love or how they identify, is celebrated and respected. And lastly, I don't understand all the money thing. Again, remember, I was raised never to question it. I don't understand why it takes so much money to do this stuff. Man, what each one of us could do with this, a fraction of the amount that we're raising. But I do understand that it's not only the person, Vice President Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, it's the administration that we're raising money for, that we're raising funding. I do pray for a day. Maybe it won't happen in my lifetime. Well, it really will be the people's vote. But until then, it takes money. And I understand that. I don't have a lot of money. Honestly, I contributed a monthly amount until the election because that's what I can do. But I have a feeling there's many here watching. If you can pray, pray for them. If you can show up for them. If you can give generously, give hilariously. And last thing, I promise to end this with a quote from John Lewis. Listen, nothing can stop the power of a committed and determined people to make a difference in our society. Why? Because human beings, that's you and me, are the most dynamic link to the divine on this planet. We are links, and we belong together, and we belong here to work towards the common good for our children, for our grandchildren, and we deserve everything good. And we got to nip this shit in the bud, and just enough is enough. Am I right? And love really does win. But sometimes it looks like this right here and right now. God bless you all. We got to do this together. And here's a hug.
Free mom hugs. Thank you, Sarah. That quote is exactly why we're here. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm very excited about our next speaker. He is an actor, comedian, vocalist, and a creator of engaging content. His viral video, Before You Call the Cops, has now been viewed more than 60 million times and has been featured in New York Times, Huffington Post, and on MSNBC. A great big welcome to my dear friend, Tyler Merritt.
Hey, friends. It feels wonderful to be here at home with you this evening. If we don't know each other just yet, I'm Tyler Merritt, an author, activist, actor, encourager, cancer survivor, not necessarily in that order. Listen, to be able to talk about community, politics, and love all together, that's the world that I want. That's the world that I will never stop fighting for, and it's an honor to know that I am truly home with all of you who have the same mission. Now, if you can, I want you to just stop for just a minute and take this moment in. Now, for the endless amount of times that we walk the streets of this country not feeling safe, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, feeling that every step that we take forward is immediately shaken with 3 steps back, when we continue to add names to the list of Black and brown people who have lost their lives to police brutality, as we brace ourselves for the inevitable day that another mass shooting once again changes all of our lives, as we still see red-blooded human beings having to fight at a seat at the table just to be counted as equal. So many of us feel that weight in our everyday lives, but in this moment right now here with you, people whose eyes and hearts have dug deep to not only dream about a better way, but have made actual movement to make the dream something that is attainable for all people. If you stop right now in this moment, just for a moment, to take a deep breath and take this minute to recognize that what you are seeing tonight on the screen before you, that feeling, that tiny sense of relief amongst humans that love you just for who you are, that thing that you're feeling is hope. Man, as a cancer survivor in hell, as a Black man in America, I find myself seeking out hope whenever I can find it. And trust me, friends, this right here tonight, and what we have been seeing all over the country in the form of rallies, donations, door knocking, phone calls, tweets, posts, videos, TikToks, and gatherings of folks that have not given up on the vision of America for all of us, that's the hope that I so desperately need right now. And it's what you, my friends, are bringing to the table by showing your support for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris. That's you, family, that's you. There are days that I feel like the Jesus that I have loved has been hijacked from me, that my faith has been vandalized by folks that have taken that thing that I have loved so much, and folks have found a way to weaponize it against the least of these, which is the exact opposite of everything I've ever known about this God that absolutely swept up my heart unexpectedly at a summer camp in Vegas so many years ago. But moments like tonight, help me remember that I've been given a love that can't be hijacked, vandalized, or manipulated, that there are those of us who are out there that understood the assignment when we were told that there is a grace that passes all understanding, and that the most important thing to do is love. So here we are, those that have not forgotten with all that is trying to pull us in every direction about our first love. Now, we have the opportunity to directly impact our communities, our neighborhoods, our mosques, our playgrounds, our schools, our temples, our LGBTQ plus safe spaces, our theaters, our homes, by putting our support with our votes, our words, our financial support to a team that sees a dynamic, hopeful, and loving future for all of us. Tonight, you've heard from so many about Harrison Wall's various plans and policies. It's all there with transparency and intention. What I see in it is that thing that I want so badly for all of us, and that is a hope for tomorrow. Thank you, friends, for being with us here tonight to continue to build a home that I feel safe and loved in. Thank you for helping me find another moment of hope with you. Something that all of us need so badly right now. Now, let's go change the world, shall we?
John, you're muted.
We knew that was going to happen. Yes. Friends, thank you, Tyler, for that incredible message. I have an update if you would like one. It looks like we are at $124,000 in contributions so far. So thank you so much. That is just fantastic. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. He is an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church USA from the South. He currently serves at Presbyterian Church of the Covenant. He also serves as president and co-executive director of progressivechristianity.org and the co-founder of the Christian Left. He's amazing. He's inspirational. Reverend Mark Sandlin. Excuse me.
Thanks so much, John.
Thanks, brother.
I have to say, the way I see it, the U.S. is in a bit of a spiritual and moral crisis. And frankly, most of us were raised to know better. I grew up in a small, somewhat rural southern town in North Carolina called Asheboro, and my family and we attended Greystone Baptist Church during my childhood, and my loving parents in that church, they instilled some really strong moral perspectives that I still hold on to tightly some 50 years later. Perspectives like love of neighbor and the understanding that we're all made equally in the eyes of God. I tell you all of this because of what I see in parts of our nation. With almost 65% of Americans identifying as Christian, Christianity is the largest religion in the United States. And given that reality, you would think that we'd be seeing an ever increasing amount of people striving to follow the teachings of Jesus. However, the sad reality is far too many people seem to be doing the opposite. Parts of the nation are becoming less about being an inclusive community and more about marginalizing those they dislike, less about contributing to the betterment of everyone and more about, I've got mine, and less about caring for all and more about fearing all those who aren't like us. It is so far from the founding aspirations of this nation, which proclaim we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It's so far from the Declaration on the Statue of Liberty, which says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. It's so far from the teachings of Jesus, who said, in the name of God, inasmuch as you did it unto one of the least of these, so too you did it unto me. The way I see it, this presidential election is about two fundamentally different approaches to life and to what this country is going to be. And folks, only one of those particular outlooks aligns with what those of us trying to follow the teachings of Jesus should support. We'll see Harris's political platform next week, but we can tell a lot about what will be in it from her Senate voting record. She is a strong proponent of public education, of reasonable gun control laws, of compassionate immigration reform, of LGBTQ plus rights. And all indications are that reproductive rights are going to play a very central role to her campaign this year. Issue after issue, what we have is a leader who is not only a strong Christian herself, but whose policies are clearly guided by a love for all people and by the understanding that we are all created equally and that we should be treated that way. We are in a crisis in America. We need a strong, steady, morally upright leadership that Harris will bring to the White House and to our nation. And as a minister, I am very hopeful in seeing a ticket that believes in science and equality and caring for the poor and vulnerable and recognizing the human dignity of all people. That ticket is the spiritual and moral bomb that this nation needs in a time of crisis. The Harris-Walz ticket, I see it as it's a ticket that brings with it the real hope for the trajectory of our country. Other than voting and donating, which you need to do, please donate, and volunteering. One of the best things that you can do is to stay informed. It's through informed one-on-one conversations with undecided voters that we can move our nations towards our founders' lofty goals and much needed goals of compassion, inclusion, and true freedom. I'd like to quickly offer you just two ways to do that. One is we're going to takebackchristianity.org. We don't endorse candidates there, and we are unique in that we're specifically trying to reach out to Christians who are undecided or not voting. And what you'll find is sort of real Christian responses to many of the major hot button topics that we know the far right Christian extremists will be trying to present warped perspectives about. So help us get that information to those undecided voters. And if you're a minister, there's even sermon starters for those topics. Highly recommend it. And the other place that I can recommend is the Christian Left on Facebook. It's a community of almost 375,000 folks talking about current events from a progressive perspective. It's not only a great place for becoming informed, but it's also a great place to find the community with folks who see the world in many of the ways that you do. So, I mean, folks, the bottom line is that America has two possible futures, and they couldn't be much more clearly defined than the opposing examples we're seeing on the presidential tickets. One is clearly rooted in joy and compassion, equality, and the common good. And the other is equally rooted in anger and domination and ego and greed. I know which one of those looks the most like what I was taught about growing up at Greystone Baptist Church. And I know which one is more of a reflection of the lofty dreams our founders had for our nation. And I know which one is most likely to bring about, well, the heaven on earth that Jesus urged us to strive for. And because of all of that, well, I know which one I'm choosing to vote for in November. And for all of those reasons, I'm asking all of you that are here with us, please donate and vote Harris Waltz in November as well. Thank you all. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. All right, our next speaker is an actor, writer, director, comedian, and activist. He's best known for his role of Damien in Mean Girls, as most recently in Mark Gordon's ABC series Conviction. He's become a well-known proponent and speaker for the LGBTQ community, and he is someone who I absolutely adore. Please welcome Daniel Franzese.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I just want to thank God that I could even be in the room with so many forward-thinking Christians. It's really like a beautiful experience for me. I have a podcast called Yas Jesus, where we explore the intersectionality between spirituality and sexuality. And that was created out of a need. And this is the same need that I think we're in today. Especially as an LGBTQ Christian, it's and I just hope the Holy Spirit fills in the words of the things that I need to say to everyone today. But truly, as an LGBTQ Christian, I see the climate out there. I see how they don't feel welcome, how they're being turned off to politics, how they're being turned off to the church. We were told not to worship false idols, but I feel like when LGBTQ people are kicked out of Christianity or pushed out that way, that they're looking towards pop stars or fashion or whatever, and there's a misplaced worship. And I feel like a lot of this comes from our politics in our country. Kamala Harris could very well be the most pro-LGBTQ president that we ever had. And I think it's a really important thing to let your siblings, other Christian siblings, know that they're welcome in a place right now. I know Sarah Cunningham was on my show and gave my mom a free Mom Hugs t-shirt. And hello, Sarah. And I have seen grown men at prides when my mom wears that shirt weep in her arms. And we're losing a lot of our people. We're losing a lot of our people, and it isn't a Christ-like way to be. The other administration, if it was ever allowed to happen, is going to practically erase transgenderism. And my nieces and nephews are growing up in Florida right now in that climate with DeSantis and how they want to erase critical race theory. They want to take out comprehensive sexual education for minors, like block potentially life-saving drugs for transgender children. There's so many things right now that we need to take into perspective. I know there's a lot of things that pull at our hearts as Christians. People have different views on abortion. They have different views on IVF. But really, the main issue is body autonomy and being able to be in control of the body that God gave us and make decisions that are based on that. Our moral decisions will be decided by somebody else. That's not up to us. And I think that we have to think about what it means that when we start excluding certain groups from the conversation, eventually you'll be excluded too. They break down all of our weaknesses. And unfortunately, the opposing administration is in a place of bullying. They're in a place of name calling. They're in a place of just taking it down to the absolute bottom level of human thinking. And we have to think about a future. I'm a futurist. I'm an early adopter of technology. I always want the new phone. I always want the next thing. I always want to think about what's next. And the slogan of "we're not going back" means so much to me. As a person who was a devout Christian my whole life, my parents were Catholic and my grandparents were immigrant Italians, and didn't understand when my mom felt something different in a Pentecostal church, and they changed their focus of religion and moved into Pentecostal, and they disowned them. And they named me Daniel without a middle name because Daniel means God is my judge. And no matter what I've been through my entire life, I've never have to worry about anyone but God judging me. And I think that gave me the spirit to understand this kind of situation where we could move forward and want to be in a place where we all feel comfortable and we all feel represented and we all feel guided. And honestly, like I feel as Christians, we've seen so many charlatans, we've seen so many televangelists or people that are money grabbing. Like, how could we? It's just common sense. Some of these issues, them criticizing Tim Walz for giving free lunch in school to children that just need proper nutrition in order to be able to learn. It's a common sense issue to me, rather than placating some of the other things that are just caring about wealth and caring about big corporations growing higher. It's important for us, I think, truly to feel accepted and to feel wanted. And I feel like there's a new revised joy in that. There's the joy that was misplaced all is now back. And I feel like the more involved we can get our progressive Christians, the people who feel like they aren't part of that far right regime that excludes them, that wants to pass laws that are oppressing them, that are not coming from a place of love. The God I know is a God of love. And I think that we have to think of the future of our country and how we can infuse more love. And that's really all I have to say. I do want to also say I'm very grateful to all of you for being here and speaking on this. It's really like filling my heart. And so many of you are dream guests on Yash Jesus. I hope you tune in and write us at contact at yashjesuspod.com if you want to be a guest, because I would love to have your voices sharing. Because honestly, I was a Christian who put myself into conversion therapy. My parents were affirming, and I put myself in growing up in Florida. And now the laws are worse. You know, we're and I can't even imagine what it's like for someone growing up like me back then. And I just needed one of you to say God loves you the way you are, and that would have changed the whole direction of my youth. And I think that on an administrative level, we can have this for our whole country. And the feeling that I felt when marriage equality was passed is the feeling I think we could have in a lot of new ways moving forward. So please consider that, and thank you, and donate.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I love your voice in this space, and I'm glad that you're here. Really glad.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is someone I love so much. She is my former pastor, and she's also the director of Justice and Compassion Essential Ministries for the California Pacific Conference of the United Methodist Church. Her role involves coordinating and facilitating missional work for over 375 churches in Southern California and Hawaii. She was a delegate to the UMC General Conference this year, where all of the harmful and prohibitive anti-LGBTQ language was taken away. Amen. So please welcome Reverend Dr. Denise Barnes.
Thank you so much, Melinda, and thank you for enabling me to have a voice in this amazing call. And I hope everyone continues to give and listen to these amazing messages. I want to tell you a little bit about the work that I'm doing specifically. Being a conference in California, which serves the border, not only at our southern end where we meet with Mexico, but also because we've been receiving buses from Texas for well over a year now. And as a result of much of this work we do is with migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Our work in Calexico, for example, is a prime example of this. The mission we have down there receives people every day, providing them with food, advice, onward travel arrangements, and hotel stays where necessary. That is, we do all of that work when we can raise the funding to cover the large costs involved. And earlier this year, FEMA awarded a $2 million grant to Calexico City Council, a grant request we helped to write, and in which we were named as a major partner in fulfilling the services that grant would enable us to provide. A city council meeting a couple of months ago was filled with right-wing council members who not only blocked the use of that grant, but also voted to send the money back to FEMA. They would rather see these people who have already suffered so much and traveled so long and so far existing on the streets of Calexico because they have no funds left to pay for their onward travel, which would get them to their sponsors, rather than having the access to the services we provide, which ensure their onward travel and safety. The pastor of this mission is a migrant himself, as are many of the community who serve there. Those considered the least of these by Trump supporters and evangelical traditional Christians being served and cared for by the least of these. And just last week, I was in Imperial Beach at a city council meeting where we were applying for an extension to the development of a 50-unit senior affordable housing project, which includes an additional building of a neighborhood center, which would work to provide the needs of the local community in terms of food banks, showers, clothing, and medical services. The pastor of that community is, like me, queer. One of the council members denied his ability to preach the gospel. A local community member spread lies and misinformation about pedophiles being present in the ministry of that church and was present and vocal at that city council meeting. And this ministry, which provides food for over 120 families every week, showers and clothing for their unhoused neighbors, and care and dignity to those struggling to make ends meet in a city where rent costs have increased by thousands of dollars in the last year. A community where those who've been helped to get back on their feet return to help others and serve as they were served. The least of these, serving, caring for, loving, and restoring dignity to the least of these. This work, which is done by churches and nonprofits across our country, will become more challenging, more difficult, and I think at times impossible to achieve should Trump be elected and roll out Project 2025 and the slew of other proposals we're hearing about. And not least because many of the people doing this work are people who have received these services or suffered the oppression and marginalization themselves in some way, and under Project 2025 would be fighting for their own survival and right to remain. You know, I have a sticker on my laptop which says, "Stop trying to sit at the tables Jesus overturned." And I believe strongly that a Trump administration would anchor those tables to the floor so firmly that turning them over would no longer be a possibility. Our call as Christians is to love our neighbors as ourselves, to take care of the least of these. Vice President Harris's record has already proved that this too is her priority. She fought for same-gender weddings and officiated some of the first in California and refused to defend Prop 8, which took away those rights. She's worked with President Biden on affordable housing for all people, and her work continues on addressing the root causes of global migration and the reason so many folks appear at our borders, having suffered so much before they arrive there. Her goals and values reflected in the work she has already done and has pledged to continue align with the views of progressive Christians and their answer to the call to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and serve all those who have been deemed the least of these. For me, the least of these means every single part of God's creation, the animals, the plants, the flora and fauna, and the entire ecosystem on which we all rely. In order to take care of the least of these, we must also work hard at creation care. Rather than returning to investing in fossil fuels, leaving the Paris Accord, and rolling back on investment in sustainable energy sources, Harris has pledged to continue the work of the Inflation Reduction Act and work more at ways in which we can work towards mitigating the droughts, floods, deforestation, gas emissions, and all the other ways in which we are raping this earth. This is why we need to be raising up the voices of those of us who believe that the harm which will be done by a further Trump administration would be devastating for not only the USA, but also the rest of the world. Since Jesus' death on the cross, providing salvation for all, Christians have spent thousands of years adding names to the list of who is excluded from that salvation. The list of who is in and who is out reads a lot like Project 2025. I cannot support an expression of Christianity which excludes, demoralizes, marginalizes, or oppresses any. Those are not the values Jesus showed us, and nor the ones which a leader of the country should live by. We need a president who reflects our Christian values and ethics, who wants to work at welcoming all, valuing all, affirming all, and ensuring that we are following the call from God to be stewards of all we have gifted. I believe that Vice President Harris is that person, and I hope that we will work hard at getting her there. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Denise. So great to have you with us. Friends, I know this is getting long, but guess what? This is something really special that's happening right now. I've been getting reports from all the chats that are going on YouTube, on the Facebook pages, on the website. People are engaging in so many great conversations and they're so inspired. So East Coast folks, stay with us. West Coast folks, come on in and get comfortable. We have some great stuff for you. Our next speaker is an award-winning writer, ordained minister, and speaker whose work in the areas of race, religion, and politics has been featured on NPR, CNN, MSNBC, ESPN, and The Atlantic. In 2022, he received the Georgia Author of the Year Award for his memoir, Shoutin' in the Fire, An American Epistle. Would you please welcome Reverend Dante Stewart?
Thank you, John. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Melinda. Hello, everyone. I am indeed grateful and count it a great privilege to be able to lend my voice as many of y'all have lent your voices, in some hopes of giving people, some light and some joy. I've wrestled deeply with what to say in the 5 minutes that I've been given. And I'm a storyteller, and I live in the South. I live in Georgia. And the best way to kind of communicate what's kind of on my heart is to begin to think about the stories of the people around me. I was recently at a restaurant and I met a woman who is Indian and came to this country by way of Canada. And here she is in an area where I work at a church, Tabernacle Baptist Church, where Reverend Dr. Charles E. Goodman is the pastor. I'm grateful for him. And she works at one of the schools in the area. She can't vote, but she has the stakes in the direction of this country because she's teaching our children. And here we are, I'm talking to her at the restaurant, and she talks about how hard it is to be who she is and to do what she's doing. And where all the assaults on freedom and justice and education is happening in our country, it's not theoretical. It's her life. And then there are the people that I live and worship with every day, Black people, this previous Sunday where we had our back to school Sunday. And our pastor usually prays over all these students from our area. And many of these students, are coming out of the COVID years, and their parents and their administrators stood with them, and we prayed over them and prayed for their support. We prayed for resources. We prayed for their safety because we're facing gun violence. We prayed over their minds and their bodies and their spirits because our children are tired. Oftentimes our children have very little to hope in. And for me, as I'm sitting here thinking about that, I'm thinking about how are we accountable to one another? And what does it mean to be accountable to a person that you're around and whom you're called to love? And that's not the only stories. Here I am at the pool at my in my neighborhood, and there's another teacher who just had a young girl who came from Yemen. She speaks hardly any Arabic, speaks hardly any English. And here this teacher has to care for this young girl who's living in a world of her own, trying to figure out how to live. And here the teacher is trying to use Google Translate just to teach this child and give them a shot at life. And then there's another one of my friends who's Muslim. And as everything been going down in the Middle East, she's Jordanian. And if anybody know anything about Jordanians, many of them, their ancestors are Palestinian. And there's a group of people from the local church who have stood with them in the American South at risk of everything on the corner saying that they want to love them because they are accountable to them. And here she is saying how afraid she is in this moment. And why do I tell you these stories? Because I'm reminded of when Martin Luther King was murdered in 1968. And a few months later, the World Council of Churches gathered together in July of 1968. And in Martin's stead, James Baldwin was to speak. And Baldwin said that right now, we're in a time where we're losing a kind of spontaneity, a kind of joy, a kind of freedom. And I think in this moment, many people are struggling with that. Whatever we believe about this moment, one thing is true is that this moment is quite possibly going to be the hardest months we're going to have to endure as people. We speak of joy, but the facts is that joy is a hard-fought emotion and experience. And in the midst of trying to attempt to get to that type of joy, one has to wrestle deeply, especially as a person of faith. How can I be accountable to another person who is afraid and wants to experience joy in a moment in which they feel they are losing presently, no matter who they are. And so that the call of the Christian in that moment is simply to do as we have been called by our Christ, is that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that they may have life and life to the full. And so the question becomes for us, what can we do to be accountable to our neighbor so that they may experience the fullness of life, no matter where they find themselves? And so this fall, for me, as a Black Southerner, as a son of the South and a baby of the Black church, it means me throwing my weight behind Vice President Harris, and to give people like my grandmother or Deacon Pope at my church, who when Vice President Harris was announced, she tells me, I feel a little energy, I feel a little hope. And here's a Black woman of the South who sees another Black woman with the possibility of doing something that has never been done before. Not simply because she's Black, but because she's Black and somebody who cares deeply and who listens, who wants to change this world for everybody. And so how do we support? How do we live? We be dependable. We be accountable to our neighbor. And we do the best we can to help them experience life. Have those hard conversations, sit with one another. Listen. We shouldn't have to run from one another. We should courageously stand with one another, no matter who we are. And to say, God not only loves you, but we love you. And because I love you, I will love you to the end. And I'll see your freedom, your humanity, and your dignity all the way through. For that indeed is the call of the Christian, is to love one another and love one another to the end. And in hopes that when January comes, we will celebrate and we will be sober, because the work continues. It is not over. The work is every day. Every word, every prayer, every protest that happens, every bill that's passed, every local election that's ran, every subject that's taught, everything that's done, nothing is in vain. And I just hope that we find a way, because Monday comes and Tuesday comes and Wednesday comes, and we're going to have to find a way to live together if we hope to survive this thing. And we will. Thank you. Love y'all.
Thank you so much, Dante. Really appreciate you being with us tonight. Friends, our next guest is a writer, speaker, activist, and founder of the Real Mama Bears organization. In 2014, she started a private Facebook group for moms of LGBTQ plus kids, and that has grown to more than 40,000 moms strong. Would you welcome my friend Liz Dyer?
Thank you. Thank you, John, for the invitation. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm excited to be here with all these wonderful speakers. I'm excited to be speaking to so many people that are watching and that will watch this. I'm excited about everybody that's donating, everybody that's volunteering, and everybody that's going to vote. I'm here this evening not only to represent myself, who I'm a woman of faith, and I wholeheartedly support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I'm all in. I'm going to do everything I can to try to get them elected. I believe that we can get them elected. But I'm not only here to represent myself, I'm also here to represent the Mama Bears community. Now, the Mama Bears community is very diverse. They are all moms of LGBTQ kids who wholeheartedly affirm and celebrate their own LGBTQ kids. They're all moms of LGBTQ kids who most days get up and ask themselves the same question: what can I do today to make the world a kinder, safer, more inclusive place for all LGBTQ people to live and thrive? But they're not all Christians. They come from many different backgrounds. but we all share very common values, values that we feel like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz represent. So that's why we're all in for them. We appreciate their policies, who we believe support and make everybody's lives better. Policies that believe in sensible gun laws so that our kids who go to school are safer. I believe that they think that every young person deserves to be in a learning environment that is safe and inclusive. They're for LGBTQ rights, which is very important to our community. They're for racial equity, voting rights, environmental justice. They just represent our values so well. And so it's exciting to have them on the ticket and to be supporting them and just to have this hope that they are going to be in the White House representing us and leading our country in the right direction. We have a program in the Mama Bears community that we recently started. It's still getting up and running, but I think it's very applicable to the moment that we're in. The program is called WWW, and it stands for Do What You Can with What You Have Where You Are. There's so many things that we can be doing right now to make sure that we get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected. Being on this call, sharing our views, posting something on social media, donating to the campaign, becoming certified to register voters, to help other people get registered, to sign up to be a poll worker. We need poll workers. Believe me, our opposition are going to have poll workers on election day and all throughout early voting. We need poll workers there to make sure that these elections are held in a fair way and that everybody that shows up to vote is treated fairly and given the opportunity to vote. There's so many things that we can do. I can't tell you exactly what to do, but what I can ask you to do is get up every day and ask yourself, what can I do today with what I have, where I'm at, to make a difference? And let's not, and I'm speaking to myself too, let's not let our preferences, our fears, drive what we do in the next few months. Listen, I don't like to make phone calls, but I'm going to phone bank. I don't like to knock on doors, but I'm going to find a way, a group of people to get out and knock on doors with. I don't think I can be a poll worker because I got a day job I got to go to all day. But if you don't have to, if you can be off and be a poll worker, it's a long day. It might be fun, but it's 12, 14, 16-hour days. But if you can do it, do it. Do what you can with what you have where you are. I know I'm speaking to the choir mostly here, but I like what Tim Walz said recently. The choir needs to sing. So we need to all be singing. I think we can do this. And if we all do what we can with what we have where we are, I think we're going to do more than just get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected. I think we can keep the House and we can take over the Senate. And then we can really get our country going in the right direction. I love all the taglines that the campaign has. When we fight, we win. We're not going back. Say it to my face. Mind your own damn business. I love it all, and I'm excited about it. And I think we can do this. So, I mean, what I want to leave you tonight with is WWW. Go out tonight thinking about it and get up every morning until we get them elected and ask yourself, what can I do today with what I have, where I'm at, to get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected? I love you. Spread the love. Thanks for having me, John. It's been a great night. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. I love the community that we're building here, and I hope you all know that the work continues after this call to continue to be loud in your faith, and let's get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz into the White House in the fall. Our next speaker has spent more than 20 years preaching and working in various forms of ministry. He has been writing in the public sphere for the last decade and has contributed to multiple publications, including the Huffington Post, Magazine, Ministry Matters, and many, many more, which also led him to publish his first book, Unraptured, in 2019. Please welcome Zach Hunt.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. I feel like I have an echo. Do I have an echo? Oh, awesome. Great. Well, I'm Zach, and I am a recovering asshole for Jesus. I grew up in the buckle of the Bible Belt and was convinced that everyone who wasn't a conservative evangelical like me was going to hell, because real Christians voted Republican, and they certainly never questioned the prophetic authority of the Left Behind series. So all I really cared about was getting raptured. I was convinced that my spiritual calling was to harass and shame strangers into becoming Christians, and that Jesus definitely wanted me to warn everyone about the Antichrist, who I was convinced was Hillary Clinton. If nothing had changed, I definitely would be MAGA today. I would think that Orange Jesus was the fulfillment of prophecy, and Project 2025 would be my Bible. I think that there's a lot of people out there that grew up like that and that are like me, that have left that behind, or that want to leave that behind. I want to help those folks do that. I think for me, what changed was getting out of my bubble, meeting other Christians that I didn't know were liberal. And then when I found out that they were liberal, it was a shock to the system. It was a pivotal moment in my life when I met a professor in particular that I really respected and admired, and got to share all of my theories about the end times with, and thought for sure that he would agree with me, and he would affirm all of my theories of who the Antichrist was and when Jesus was going to return. And when he didn't, and it rocked my world. It made me begin to ask some really hard questions. It was that proverbial thread that pulled at the sweater of my faith and made me question what it really meant to be a Christian. And that process eventually led me to begin to wonder that maybe being a Christian was more about loving Jesus, and that loving Jesus was maybe more important than believing in Jesus, and that seeking justice was maybe more important than being right, which is something that would have been anathema to me as a teenager, or even as a college student, voting for John McCain and Sarah Palin. I definitely would have damned myself to hell in a heartbeat for even thinking something like that. But for me, it's been a move from the fear of being left behind to a hope for a better world in the here and now, the earth that Jesus promised on earth as is in heaven, not in that toxic Christian nationalist way, but in a way that is just embodied by radical love for our neighbors as an end to itself, not as a marketing ploy to get people to come to church, or to manipulate them into becoming a convert that we can add to our membership rolls, but just to love people because they're people. Like I said, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like me, that are obviously on this call, or we wouldn't be, here talking together and coming together as Christians for Kamala. And I think I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening in now that are coming out of that same sort of conservative evangelical bubble, and are hoping for something different, for something better, for something more hopeful, more joyful. And I think that's what a lot of us see. And I know that's what a lot of us see in the Harris and Walz tickets. And if I can do anything to contribute to this campaign, I hope that it's helping folks like me that have come out of this and say that, there is something better out there, and that it is possible to leave the bubble, and it's okay. Life is good out here in the rest of the real world. And so anyway, for me, voting for them is an opportunity to make the world a better place. The place that I want for my kids, a place that I want for my neighbors, for my friends to grow up in. Her comment, or the line that gets shared a lot about not going back, is something that's really resonated a lot with me personally, because I don't want to go back to the country that we had in 2016 and 18 and 19 and 20, but I also don't want to go back to the person that I was. I don't want to be that person again. I don't want to get sucked into that world, and I want to help folks that feel that that same tug that there's got to be something better out there. And so I want to be a part of that and support that in any way we can. I think everyone here obviously feels the same way, or we wouldn't be joining this call. And I'm sure there's lots of folks out there, they're listening in and feel the exact same way. So anyway, I am a recovering asshole for Jesus, and I want to be a more loving person for Jesus, and I want to do that in any way I can. And I think that supporting this ticket of hope and joy and optimism is one way to do that. But of course, none of that is going to become a reality if we don't show up on election day and vote. So if you're watching this, I hope that you make sure that you're registered to vote. If you are already registered to vote, double check and make sure that your registration is still active, because folks are getting booted off of these registration rolls and not knowing about it and showing up to vote and not being able to cast ballots. So make sure your registration is still active. Make sure you know where your polling station is. And obviously, make sure you actually show up and vote, because the polls might sound great. The enthusiasm may be over the top. The memes are awesome. Walls is hilarious. The crowds are turning out in droves. But if we don't vote, then the assholes for Jesus are going to win this election. So get out there and vote. And thank you guys for having me. It's been a real honor to listen to all these incredible people. And I can't wait to hear everyone else that has to speak.
Thank you, Zach. So appreciate that. Friends, if you're just joining us or you've been with us for a little while, just enjoying these speakers, please click on that QR code, give generously, donate your time to the campaign, and commit to us to be part of this movement going forward. Our next speaker is a progressive evangelical pastor, author, and a leading voice for progressive Christianity. He is the executive director of Vote Common Good, a nonprofit of interdenominational faith leaders working with religiously motivated voters to elect progressive candidates who've signed the Vote Common Good pledge. He is a friend. Please welcome Doug Padgett. Hey, Doug.
Hey, Ren. Hey, John. Hey, y'all. Good to see you from the great state of Minnesota, y'all. Hey, and if you think you like Tim Walz and you want to be a little more like that, just come on up to Minnesota. Honestly, we're all like that. It's unbelievable. You don't even have to be from here. You can be an import like we got with Tim Walz from Nebraska. It just lands on you. So hello from Minnesota, and I'm wearing my Kamala 2024 shirt. On July 21st, when it became clear she was going to become the nominee, my wife's friend, who has a cricket machine, said she would make me a shirt. So I made a homemade Kamala 2024 shirt. And I'm wearing this shirt, and I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I support her candidacy for president. Not because she's Christian, which she is, but because I'm a Christian. Because I'm a Christian, I want her to be the president. And frankly, because I'm a Christian, I do not again want Donald Trump to be president. So I'm going to do everything that I can. Our organization, Vote Common Good, is out doing its particular work, helping faith voters get connected to candidates they might not know about, because I think it really matters, like all of you. And if you're watching this now, if you've picked up late or you've been here the whole time, it also matters to you. And I'll tell you, there's a group of people, though, who I know couldn't wear this shirt. Some of those are members of my family. You probably are the same way. You may have people in your family, people you dearly love, that you love with all of your heart and would give everything you've got for them. Yet there's no way they're going to wear this shirt, and there's no way they're thinking they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. So we live in a world where some of us are settled, but we also live in a world where there's a whole bunch of people who don't yet know what they're going to do. I got into evangelical Christianity by the invitation of a friend, April 1st, 1983. I'm one of those people that has a start story. I know exactly the day it started. I remember the things I was thinking till this day about how it all started. And I was welcomed into Christianity in 1983 by a bunch of evangelicals who 1,241 days earlier had voted for an evangelical Democrat from Georgia named Jimmy Carter. Because evangelicals in 1976 and 1980 voted for someone like Jimmy Carter, for Democrats. In 1976, 60% of evangelicals voted for Jimmy Carter. In 2016, 16% of evangelicals voted for Hillary Clinton. Something happened. It wasn't an accident. People did things. We now live in a world where Joe Biden got 25% of evangelical votes. I think it's really possible for Kamala Harris to receive the highest amount of evangelical support since Jimmy Carter. And if that happens, she is the next president. And if that happens, it will break the back of the MAGA movement. And that really matters. So friends, if you have evangelical friends, you heard from Zach, you're going to hear from others, I'm sure, telling their stories. It's really possible for people to change. Look, I know the story of a bunch of people who are on these calls. Many of us have stories where we voted differently and thought differently in the past. We've changed. People really do change. Now, look, we're not going to get to parity this year. We're not going to get to 50% of evangelicals or 40%, only 40% of white Catholic voters voting for Trump. We're not going to get to those numbers in this election, but we can get a lot closer. There's about 11% of evangelicals and Catholics, white Catholics, who are movable in this election. Here's the great news. You know those people. The people you know are connected to those people. And so many of these folks, their minds have already changed, but they don't know what they're going to do next. You know, when you study behavioral change, we all know this because a lot of us are in the behavioral change world. There's an entire system that has to come in place for any of us to change a habitual pattern. Voting tends to be a habitual pattern. We like to joke in our work at Vote Common Good that a lot of people became Christian and their Republican identity came as a side dish, like you ordered the number 2 at Wendy's and it just came with the fries on the side. And you didn't know you could swap it out for a salad, which, by the way, you can. You can order the combo and say you want a salad instead. It's a little tip for somebody that spends too much time at a Wendy's. But a lot of people just got their Republican identity when they made their proclamation of faith. And everyone they know votes that way. As my friend Jonathan Wilson Hargrove likes to say, if you grew up or lived in a situation hearing the things and knowing the people that so many folks in the Republican evangelical world know, you would vote for the same people too. But then people make an exception. And why do they make an exception? Often it involves an exceptional candidate, meaning a candidate they will make an exception for. For a lot of people, friends, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will be that exception because Donald Trump is making it nearly impossible. And frankly, J.D. Vance is terrifying to the most hardened committed to that movement. So there are people who are looking at Kamala Harris as an exception. But the other thing they need is they need a partner. In our work at Vote Common Good, we travel around the country. We travel in this big bus that says faith, hope, and love, supporting democracy for all. In fact, this is my Harvey Milk moment. I'm here to recruit you. We want you on that bus or beside that bus with us. So whether you're a speaker or someone watching this, find us at votecommongood.com. We travel the country. We're going into these swing states. We want you there. We're going to put up candidate events with local candidates, people running for Senate, people running for the House of Representatives, and we're going to introduce voters to these candidates. But what people need is they need a partner and they need a friend. You could be that friend. Look, let's not leave these people alone. It's really hard for people to break a pattern. I want to tell you just one brief story about a person who drove an hour and a half for a nighttime event that we had in Michigan, in West Michigan. She was in her late 60s. And I said to her, wow, it's a long way for you to come for an event like this. And she said, well, yeah, but in my town, I can't tell people that I'm going to vote for a Democrat. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, well, I own the hardware store. She didn't have to say anything else. I knew what that meant. If people find out, they're not going to go to her hardware store. For other people, they've told us they'll get kicked out of their churches. They'll lose their friends. They might have a conflict within the relationship that matters a lot to them. So people need a partner. They're looking to change and they don't want to be left alone. So friends, let's all reach out to somebody. Let's be kind and invite them. Ask them to join you if you've made a decision to vote for Kamala Harris, because many of these people have never had someone they love ask them to vote for a Democrat a day in their life. And you could be a person that would make a huge difference. So thanks to all of you for putting all this together. Let's just remember there's a lot of our fellow Christians out there that don't have anyone like all of us around them telling them the things that they're hearing tonight. And our commitment can be for the next 89 days to never leave them alone. So thanks a lot. And John, Melinda, thanks for this great night.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. And I hope everyone that is watching, you feel inspired by all of the speakers. And of course, you feel led to give or volunteer to help us get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz into the White House this fall. John, who do we have next?
We have the founder and director of Christian Democrats of America, a movement launched in 2008. Since then, that movement has grown to over 250,000 followers who are with us tonight. We are live streaming there. I would like to welcome the founder and director, Christina Forrester. Hi, Christina.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hi, John. How are you? Thanks so much for just, I'm so happy that we've been able to collaborate in this event. And it's just amazing. Everything I've heard tonight, the feeling here, it's nothing less than anointed, I will say. So I just want to talk a little bit about since starting Christian Democrats in 2008, I've been told countless times that being a Christian and voting Democrat is an oxymoron. We've heard that from trolls. We've heard that from every corner since starting our movement. And I've also received thousands of messages from people across the country in the reddest of red states and the bluest of blue states who've been cast out of their church fellowship, Bible study groups, and have been broken by church bullying. And this is the kind of thing, Doug was touching on that a minute ago. I've heard from people who were cast out, even at schools, even of their own families, their own fellowship, something that's so hurtful. And, when you do stand up as a Christian and who's voting for Democrats or simply standing for your values, whether you're an independent Democrat, Republican who just can't abide the Trump agenda, or you're likely to find yourself on the receiving end of this kind of trolling and loss of community, it's something I, as a gay Christian, can certainly relate to, and most can of the LGBTQ community. However, I would propose the following as a response, and this is something we've used through the years. And if you need something to respond with when you're faced with this, this happens to you, I would say, is it not an oxymoron to claim that Christian values are your values, but then support children of refugees being ripped from their mother's arms at the border? Is it not an oxymoron to talk about Jesus on Sunday and then serve an agenda of hate and exclusion of his children the rest of the week or in the voting booth? Now, this election is not just about politics.
Christina?
It's about values.
Christina?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I can't see you. And if you want to be seen, I just wanted to make sure you knew that your video was off.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, my video's on my end.
Okay. We can't see you. We can hear you clearly. I wanted to make sure that you can keep going. I'm sorry.
Let's see. Let me try starting it back. Can you see me now?
I cannot, but we've got you loud and clear. So
okay, so strange because on my end I'm seeing myself, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
sorry about that. But this election, and no problem, that's fine. This election is not simply about politics; it's about values. And voting our values goes far beyond policy and begs the question: what kind of country do you want to live in? Including the very atmosphere in which you want to live in. The atmosphere of joy, unity, and hope is evident at the Harris rallies. Now, I'm a pastor's kid and grandkid, niece, and most of my family are pastors, and I was always drawn to the music. I was singing or playing church music from about 8 years old and started leading praise and worship when I was 15. And you know what I found about praise over the years? It brings joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength. That really is true. The music itself changes the atmosphere in your heart, in the room, because of the anointing and the joy. There's a reason we have Psalms. There's a reason we have an expression of praise. And as a Christian, it's supposed to show on our faces and follow us in our interactions. When you meet a Christian, you should feel the kindness. You should feel joy. You should see new life. And of course, you should feel love. Where these things are not evident, you are not likely to find the Spirit dwelling. Remember the scripture, they will know you are Christians by the love you show. If you don't see love, it isn't Jesus. If hate is evident, if there is no joy or hope evident, it isn't Jesus. And one final thing I want to share with you, you might not think you have an impact in this election, but you do. Even if all you can do is pray, then do it. We have a pledge on christiandims.org to pray for the Harris campaign every day leading up to the election, and thousands have already signed on. There's power in this, and I want you to know wherever you are tonight, you're not alone, and thousands of Christians are praying right along with you. If you want to be part of that movement, please join us and get all the info on our movement at christiandims.org, and then click on Christians for Kamala tab. Thank you so much to John and everyone for collaborating, being part of this event. It's something very special. And let's just go forth and creating this new revival and the kind of America we want to live in. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Christina. All right, our next speaker is a theologian, essayist, columnist, and education advocate. She's the author of the book Red Lip Theology for Church Girls Who've Considered Tithing to the Beauty Supply Store When Sunday Morning Isn't Enough. She's written for Essence, Glamour, The Rio, and The Root, to name a few. Please welcome Candace Benbow.
Hey, y'all. To John and to Melinda and to everyone who made this happen, I am truly honored, absolutely honored to be a part of it. And I'm excited to be here. Look, I was born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was a little girl reciting Easter speeches and a youth usher at Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church. And I was a Girl Scout from Daisy to senior, with all of my Girl Scout troops being in the basements of Black churches in that city. It was in those churches that I was taught to love God and take care of your people. Zion Hill taught me that faith and a deep commitment to justice are interconnected. And we were taught that some of Jesus's most important words were, "Inasmuch as you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me." Not only am I a Christian, I am a Black woman whose ancestors understood that the fight for freedom was and is a holy fight. They believed that as long as they were fighting for liberation and for equality, they would always be on the right side of history, and most importantly, on the right side of God's heart, right? I have a vision for this country that is grounded in what I was taught at Zion Hill and in my Girl Scout troops. And it's one where the least of these aren't the least of these anymore. They are given what they need to thrive and to flourish. And I believe that that vision is most aligned with Kamala Harris becoming the next president of the United States. Look, I could tell y'all that it is prime time for this country to be led by the wisdom that is cultivated in Black Baptist churches, in Black colleges and universities, and in Black Greek letter organizations. Shout out to my sorors, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And that would all be true. But it's so much more in that. It's so much more important than that. It's time for us to make the decision that our now and our future deserve a sacred intervention. And that intervention is us going to the polls to make the statement that we care. We care about what's happening today, we care about what's happening tomorrow, and we care about what's going to happen in the future. I am voting for Kamala Harris because ain't no way in North, South, East, or West Hill I am going to dishonor the work of my ancestors to vote for a tyrant who wants me to have less rights than I had when I was born. That's not happening. No way, no how. I want all of us to thrive. I want all of us to soar. And I believe that we get closer to that thriving, we get closer to that flourishing with the Harris-Walz administration. To do that, We need everyone to vote. We need you to make sure that your voter registration is still active. I live in Georgia. They being trifling out here, so they being trifling everywhere. So please check your voter registration to make sure that you are registered. And not only just register, y'all, they need money. Unfortunately, the campaigns in this country require some money. And if we are going to win, we need every bit that we can. Don't think that if you can just donate $1 or $5, that doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. As a matter of fact, it was the small donations that we saw the biggest surge in when Kamala Harris was announced as the presumptive nominee. That is because everyday people like us, who are not billionaires, who are not millionaires, thought that it was important to say with our dollars, with our cents, that this administration matters to us. I'm excited. I'm going to be out there. I'm running my mouth on social media to make sure that everybody knows that this is all stakes and everybody needs to play their part. I'm out there in our community doing the same thing. And I want you to push your cousins. I want you to push your aunties and your uncles, your daddy, and everybody else who don't agree with you and don't believe with you. Push them to reconsider about the future of this country, because this vote, this election matters in ways that if we do not get this right, we will be dealing with it for generations to come. I'm excited to hear what everybody else has to say. Again, thank y'all so much for having me, and I just look forward to staying in this fight with y'all. Thanks.
Candace, thank you. That was fantastic. So wonderful to hear from you. So friends, okay, we have 8 speakers to go. So what I want you to do is I want you to stretch. I want you to get a snack, and I want you to fluid adjust, but then stay with us because you are going to be inspired and encouraged. Just to let you know, we are now up to $146,977 in donations that are largely those small donations that Candace talked about. So it's so important. So if you're just joining us, please give, hit the QR code. Our next speaker is a disciple of Jesus and a husband, a dad, a son, and a grandpa, and a brother from the Pacific Northwest. He is the founder of the Christian Left. Please welcome Charles Toy. Hey, Charles.
Hey, wow. Just wow is all I can say about this. I couldn't be more happy with what I'm hearing tonight. Thanks, John, and all the organizers of this event. Thank God for the internet, social media, and everyone here, because when I started doing what I do back in 2009, it was a pretty lonely space in this area of thought. And not that we weren't out there, but we weren't connected very well. So I'm happy to be involved with Christians for Kamala, which I am. I'm a Christian and I'm voting for Kamala. And I know all of you are too, but let's get out there and tell as many people as we can. Many of you who've spoken tonight are dear friends and mentors of mine. There's not much I can say that hasn't already been said. So I'll just tell you a little small bit of my personal story, which echoes topics I've heard tonight. I've been a Christian all my life. I don't remember a time when I wasn't taken to church as a little kid. I think my earliest memories are 4 years old, going to church and Sunday school, and I went every single week till I was about 17 and refused to keep going. I'm the son of a Missouri Synod Lutheran woman and a mother, and who's now with the Lord, and my dad was the son of a Baptist deacon. So it runs pretty thick in my past. I just turned 60 years old, and like Frank Schaeffer, I remember life before the Christian right. When I went to church and Sunday school every week, vacation Bible school every summer, 3 years of catechism classes in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, the entire time I was growing up, I never once heard the pastor or anyone else tell the congregation who they should vote for. It just didn't happen. So there was a time, like Frank says, where what we see now just didn't take place. And so I look back, I've always been a politics junkie. When I look back, I started to think, well, when did politics get nasty like it is now? And really, when it did get nasty was when Newt Gingrich came along with the Contract for America, and he just told everybody, listen, we're going to start calling names, blah, on and on and on. There's lots written about it. And Jerry Falwell and Paul Weyrich and the boys started talking about the moral majority. In fact, there's a great article on Politico that's been out for years. Let me just look at it here. It's called The Real Origins of the Religious Right by Randall Balmer. I encourage everyone to read that article because it explains exactly what happened, like Doug Paget was talking about. Something happened. And this article explains what happened. So when I saw this, all I could think of is, where is Jesus in all of this? Where are the words and teachings of Jesus? Where's Matthew 25? Where's the concern for the least of these? The gospel is simple: love God and love your neighbor and take care of the least of these. So I'm happy to be hearing that over and over tonight. Real briefly, fast forward to 2008, I was sitting around with a friend of mine, and he said his aunt once asked him, there's a Christian right, but where's the Christian left? And I had wondered that same thing about 6 months earlier, and I had Googled it, and I found the wiki page for the Christian left. And so when I got home, I sent him that wiki page, and he said, he read it over, and he said, yeah, but it's just kind of a nebulous thing that nobody's really grabbed a hold of. And when I heard him say that, I knew what I had to do. My background is in marketing and advertising. I've got a degree in it. I've done many things throughout the years in the profession. And so I went out and secured the domain name of the Christian Left and started the social media outlets for the Christian Left. That was in 2009. Right now, as Mark Sandlin mentioned, who's a strong partner of mine, he's been with me since 6 months into it. So now up to 375,000 on the Christian Left Facebook page, and then we've got another page called Progressive Christians and Friends that has about 140,000. We do discussions all day, every day about the news and other topics. We invite you to come over and join us. So I would love also, there's a huge thing that I'm concerned about, and that is Trump's minions not certifying the election in key counties when the election comes up. So I'd love everyone to go to our blog, which is the christianleftblog.org. The top blog post is about this concern, and there are some resources there for people to look over. Also, everybody if you can, watch the film God and Country. A lot of the folks that have been in this broadcast tonight are in that movie. It echoes everything we've been hearing tonight. It explains what Christian nationalism is, and which is not Christian. I think we should just clarify that as much as we can. It's an excellent overview. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. I can so relate with the woman who said that all she ever heard was the Christian left is an oxymoron, a Christian Democrat is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as the Christian left. Charlie Kirk is going to massive churches out there and telling people that you cannot be a Democrat and vote, or a Christian and vote Democrat. Massive churches. And they're spending billions of dollars on this. So we've got our work cut out for us. And I just want to thank you guys for being here, and thanks for having me. I'll hand it back over to John. Thanks again.
Thank you, Charles. So appreciate that tonight. Really do. A Publishers Weekly calls our next speaker one of Christianity's fresh voices. I just call him a friend. He is an incredible speaker, activist, and he's a children's book author, and you have seen all his books around. His latest is called I Am God's Dream. He is a friend of me and all of us. Would you welcome Matthew Paul Turner?
Thank you, John. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me. My name is Matthew Paul Turner, and I am a father of 3 and a children's book author. In a book that I finished for author and Christian visionary Rachel Held Evans after her death, she and I wrote that God is like a mother, strong and safe. You can crawl up into her lap whenever you want to, and she will hold you until you fall asleep. I'm here to advocate on behalf of our children, your children and my children, for children of color, for LGBTQIA plus children, for indigenous children, for children who are Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, non-religious, and Christian, for undocumented children, for disabled children, for children in Miami, Chicago, and Houston, for children in West Virginia, New Mexico, and Maine, and for children in Gaza. I believe God cares about every single child, and that every one of their stories matters to God and should matter to us. Our children's livelihoods matter to God. Their health care and education matter to God. Their safety when they are attending school matters to God. Their orientations matter to God. Their mental and emotional well-being matters to God. Their joys and hopes and dreams matter to God. Their bodies and their minds and their souls matter to God. I'm a Christian who believes our daughters should have the power to make choices regarding their own bodies. I'm a Christian who believes that our children should not have to worry about gun violence while they are in school. I'm a Christian who believes that every gay kid should be able to attend a school in which they feel celebrated and safe to be their whole selves. I'm a Christian who believes that the health care of trans kids should not be mandated or limited by middle-aged conservative blowhards with large social media followings. I'm a Christian who believes that Black and brown kids should be able to walk down a street without fearing that they might be gunned down by law enforcement. I'm a Christian who believes that our country's foreign policies should never jeopardize the safety and well-being of children. I'm a Christian who believes that every child should have access to healthcare and should not go to bed hungry or without shelter. I'm a Christian who believes that every child's story is a story that matters to God, and it's a story that should matter to us. That's why I'm here to throw my support for President of the United States to Kamala Harris, and I'm honored to join all of these wonderful speakers here. Thank you, John, for inviting me, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Brother, thank you. So good to hear from you. Friends, just an update before Melinda jumps on. We have now crossed the $150,000 mark. Your generosity is just astounding. Progressive and moderate Christians are doing beautiful work. So thank you. Keep it going. Keep it going.
All right, our next speaker is an author, speaker, activist, and public theologian. He's the Dean of Faculty for the Center for Action and Contemplation and a podcaster with Learning How to See. Please welcome Brian McLaren.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here with you. For 24 years, I was a pastor, and along the way, I became interested in history, especially the history of Christian faith in American life over the last 400 plus years here. And here is a very simple lesson that I learned. From the beginning of this nation, there have been two traditions in American history. First, there is a good, beautiful, and true tradition. It's never been perfect, but it's always been willing to admit its mistakes and grow. And second, there has always been a mean-spirited, ugly, and deceptive tradition that has opposed nearly every step of needed growth proposed by the first tradition. These two traditions have been competing for the soul of this nation from the very beginning, and they are still competing today. I'd like to contrast them in three different areas. First, the two traditions approach freedom differently. The ugly American tradition offers more freedom for some people by depriving equal freedom from others. It typically distorts both Christianity and the US Constitution by offering white Christians, especially rich white Christians, more power, privilege, and freedom than their neighbors of other faith commitments. The beautiful American tradition, by contrast, wants to end this kind of favoritism. It asserts that every human is created equal. Each of us best preserves our own freedom and dignity, not by depriving others of theirs, whatever their religion, race, wealth, culture, or gender. This is the beautiful tradition of freedom that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz support. And that's one reason I enthusiastically support them. Second, the two traditions treat the land differently. The ugly American tradition has exploited this beautiful land for the short-term profit of a few. This tradition sees forests, rivers, soil, and even the atmosphere as little more than a bank vault and a toilet. A bank vault to suck fast profits out of, and a toilet to dump wastes into. In contrast, the beautiful American tradition teaches that if we want to reap healthy lives, we need to sow good seed in earth care. We need to forge a new and respectful relationship with this good earth. That's why we urgently need Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because the long-term health of the earth is more important than the short-term wealth of a few powerful billionaires. And third, in addition to the contrasting way that these two traditions look at freedom and the earth, these two American traditions nurture very different ethos, a very different spirit or character. The ugly American tradition has often favored the loud, the bullying, the mean-spirited, the craven, the selfish, the dishonest, the greedy, the con artist, and so on. And it tends to choose candidates who manifest these character qualities. In contrast, the beautiful American tradition has been positive. It's been hopeful, generous, cooperative, courageous, and kind. And it always looks for candidates who can manifest these qualities. And I think you've all noticed that from the first day Kamala Harris spoke as our candidate for president, she has radiated this ethos or spirit. She's dared to smile rather than scowl, to express joy rather than to whine, to speak with intelligence and kindness and hope rather than name calling and grievance and lies. She and Tim Walz want to lead us beyond the tired old culture wars where we're all conditioned to see each other as enemies. Instead, they want us to discover the beautiful American spirit of care and kindness, where we treat each other as neighbors and as equals. For Christians, that spirit should strike a joyful chord in our hearts. So, my Christian faith teaches me not to be overcome by evil, but instead to overcome evil with good. And that's why I want to use my voice and my vote to support the beautiful American tradition represented by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And I hope you will too. Let's go with love for the win. Thanks.
You're muted.
You're muted, John.
Welcome to my world.
Yes, it's almost Tuesday here in the East. So please keep that energy going. Thank you, Brian. Our next speaker is the president of the New York State Federation of Democratic Women with over 25 years of distinguished professional experience. McGraw is widely recognized for her strong leadership in developing strategies in the financial, operational, public policy, and community sectors for various national and regional entities. Would you please welcome Denise Murphy McGraw?
Okay. John, I don't think Denise is here.
Okay, we will move on. Thank you, friends. Okay, our next guest is a dear friend. He is heavily involved with the Vote Common Good organization that we talked about. He is an incredibly wise human being, and he's been doing so much work in this area. I'm excited for you to hear from my good friend, Rob Ryersey.
Thank you, John. You know, there's so much that we all can do to support Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. I want to talk to you about something that all of us can do, regardless of how much money we can donate or how much time we have to volunteer, and that is to have conversations with our family and friends about supporting the Harris Walz campaign. Now, maybe you're thinking, like I am, I'm not sure I can do that. There are so many Christian family members that I have that are Republicans, so many friends that I have that are Republicans, and they're never going to change. I get that. But I want to tell you that change is possible. And I know this because I changed. I grew up a very conservative Christian Republican. Few of my bona fides, 5-time on the air caller to the Rush Limbaugh show. Probably the only person on this call tonight that was also, once or twice or 5 times on Rush's show. When I was a teenager, I had a subscription to National Review magazine. I had pictures of Newt Gingrich and Bob Dole up on my wall. I went to teenage Republican school. I was deep in it. Like, think Alex P. Keaton. That's where I was. And I changed. And other people can change too. Now, here's something that we've learned in our work with Vote Common Good, and that is that behavioral change often happens before identity change happens. Behavioral change happens before identity change happens. The party that you identify with, what you call yourself. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal. Those are all identity statements. And they're really hard to change. They change very slowly. But how you vote or who you vote for in a particular election, that's a behavior. I want to suggest to you that maybe our purpose in the next 89 days ought to be not so much getting our family and friends to change their identity, i.e., to become Democrats. Maybe what we ought to be focusing on is getting them to change their behavior. That is to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 election. The trick here is to give them a permission structure to do this, to give them a permission structure to make an exception. Doug Padgett mentioned earlier that in our work with Vote Common Good, we talk to candidates who are running for office. We work with Democratic candidates all over the country. And one of the things as we talk to Democratic candidates, as we talk to voters, some of the things that we hear is, I'm a Republican, I would never vote for a Democrat. And so we tell Democratic candidates that what they need to be is an exceptional candidate. And what we mean by that is they need to be the kind of candidate that someone's willing to make an exception for. They say, I would never vote for a Democrat, but I would vote for her. I would never vote for a Democrat, but I would vote for Kamala. And the way that you can give someone this kind of permission structure to make that exception is you can simply say to them something like, listen, I know you're a Republican. I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. I'm asking you to vote for Kamala Harris in this election. I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. I'm asking you to vote for Kamala Harris in this election. Give them permission to change their behavior without having to change their identity. And here's the little Trojan horse. Once that first domino falls, once their ballot begins to turn ever so purple, it will only continue to go that way. It's my story. It's the story of my best friend in the world. It's conservative Republican Christian, involved in a large evangelical church, could not vote for Donald Trump in 2016, so he decided to vote for Evan McMullin instead. In 2020, he left the top of his ballot blank and didn't vote for a presidential candidate. And then in 2022, he texted me a picture of his ballot on election day as he stood in the booth casting his ballot. And at the top of his ballot, we live in the state of Arkansas. He had voted for a guy by the name of Dr. Chris Jones to be governor of Arkansas instead of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's the first Democrat he had ever voted for in his life. And the reason he voted for him is because Dr. Chris Jones is an exceptional candidate, someone he was willing to make an exception for. And what my friend doesn't realize is that this next time around, his ballot is going to be even more purple. And I want to encourage you with your family and friends, as you're talking with them, try to remember how change happens. It happens when behavior changes before identity. And it never, so rarely happens because of shame or guilt. Those are not change agents. The, what took you so long kind of attitude doesn't do any of us any good. Grace is the thing that changes people. Love is the thing that changes people. See, Apostle Paul said in the book of Romans that it is God's kindness that leads us to repentance. And in this election, the kindest thing you can do is give someone permission to join all of us in voting for Kamala Harris. Thank you so much.
Hit that unmute button for us, John.
I'm new at this, folks.
I remember my first Zoom call.
Yeah, right. One reminder, we are in our home stretch, but we have a few speakers left and we want to share something really important at the end of this. But our next speaker is the producer and CEO of the Wild Goose Festival. It goes without saying how great an organization that is. Would you welcome Jeff Clark?
Hey, John. Thank you. And thank you, Melinda, for putting this together. What an incredible night. I am with the Wild Goose Festival and happy to be here with these amazing voices in support of the Harris-Walz election. I've been doing this campaign thing for a minute. My first presidential campaign in which I actually had a role was in helping to elect Jimmy Carter in 1976. And I want to just quickly offer two suggestions, I guess, from that history. First, as we engage people with these real opportunities for real change, please remember that people debate with their hearts. They debate with their heads, but they vote with their hearts. So in every way possible, make our appeals personal. Secondly, voter turnout is a one person at a time action. I want to encourage us to specifically reach out to a huge population of people that frankly have been threatened to sit this election out. My grandchildren and your grandchildren, folks that have felt left out, felt they just weren't involved in the conversation, that nobody cared what they were saying or what they were doing. 6 months ago, we were really worried that they weren't even going to look this direction again. And for many of them, their lethargy has turned to a sense of just literally disengagement. I want to let you know that tonight I have two frustrated voter age grandchildren. On tonight, I reached out to both of them. One will be in college, undergraduate on election day. The other will be studying in France on election day. Neither of them before tonight were presently prepared to participate in this election. I reached out to them and I reached out to their parents to specifically raise the question, are you ready and registered to vote? 2 grandkids. I guess I'm saying this from this perspective. It will work if all of us do the little things. So many folks have brought that up tonight. It's the day-to-day little things that's going to matter, I think, in this. Voter turnout is critical to winning an election. And we are, I think, politically at risk for low voter turnout because of the general tendency of lethargy among young people over the last few months. So I think we've got to really pick that piece back up. I've reached out to my grandkids, reach out to your kids, the folks down the street from you, make sure that they're ready, registered, and willing to vote. And thanks again, John, and to Melinda, and to all of you folks for your wise insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Friends, our next speaker is a spiritual care provider at City of Hope Comprehensive Cancer Center in Los Angeles, where he supports patients, families, and healthcare providers through serious illness and major life transitions. It is such an honor to welcome the Reverend Jonathan T. Stoner.
Thank you, John. It's a privilege to be here. I feel so honored to be on this call with so many of my heroes. And I've heard so many amazing things tonight, so many things that I'm still chewing on, so much. I think just my takeaways, I'm just feeling inspired. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling renewed. I just, was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, and I keep coming back to my students at the church where I work. I work at All Saints Pasadena as the interim youth director. And I'm thinking about our queer students, our trans students. I'm thinking about the kind of country, the kind of world that I want to see for them. And I actually reached out to them before this call just to ask, what would you like me to share on this call? And I got a couple of responses. One of the responses I got was from one of my students who said, as a transgender person on HRT, my biggest fear is that future laws might prevent me from accessing my medication. Across the country, policies are being enacted that strip away rights for LGBTQ plus individuals, even in places that are currently LGBTQ plus friendly. There's a real concern that these protections could be lost. My hope is that people will understand the need for equality for all. True Christianity is not about hate, but about love and acceptance. This is the core message of Jesus and God. And then I heard from another one of our students who said, I would like to address the importance of safe spaces for queer individuals, not just within religious settings, but she said, I am deeply concerned about my future in the United States, not only from a political perspective, but also from a community standpoint. I want to be in environments where I can fully be myself without fear. It is crucial to expand and support more spaces where queer people can come together and worship openly. And the student said, while at All Saints provides a welcoming environment, I hope to see this message of inclusion and safety continue to grow and inspire other communities as well. And I think also of a patient that I just had at City of Hope who just passed away recently. This was a young man who lived in 4 different foster homes and was finally adopted by a progressive Jewish couple in Los Angeles. And I remarked to this young man's mother that I felt like they had rescued him and he had rescued them. And his mom showed me pictures of him after he came to live with them. He had come from many different foster homes, especially foster homes where he wasn't allowed to be himself. He wasn't allowed to fully express who he was. And when he came to live with this family, the thing that he wanted to do most was he wanted to go to West Hollywood on Halloween and dress up as Lady Gaga. And he got his dad to be his security guard. And they went to West Hollywood. And she showed me all these pictures of this young man walking around West Hollywood as a teenager with all these people just smiling and wanting to take pictures with him. And he was just lit up like a Christmas tree. He was so happy, so fully himself. And I just thought, wow, I'm seeing this young man as like the best version of who he is, the truest version of who he is. And I want to live in a country where people like this young man, people like the students in my youth group, whether they're queer, whether they're straight, whether they're non-binary, where they can feel safe, where they can be themselves. And I was just thinking, you know, when I vote, like even when I voted back in 2016, when I voted back in 2020, I was always thinking of the trans young people in my life. I was always thinking of the Black, the Indigenous, the people of color in my life. And those were the people that were at the forefront of my mind when I voted. And I think honestly, it's because of the lessons that I imbibed from my grandparents, from my parents. I was thinking, you know, when I grew up in a Baptist tradition. My grandparents were missionaries. My parents were active in the church. And one of the lessons that I absorbed from them is that there's always a space for everyone at the table. There's, you know, on Sundays, we would gather at my grandma's house, my grandma and grandpa's house for dinner, for Sunday dinner. And my grandparents had a halfway house that they operated out of their home. And everyone was invited to the table. Everyone was invited. And it wasn't about what you had done, what about your background, who you were. It was everyone was invited. Everyone was welcome. And I was just thinking that's the kind of Christianity that I was exposed to growing up. And I have seen in recent years how the Christian movement has been hijacked by the MAGA movement, and where it's just about this opposition to gay people, to trans people, to people of color, to immigrants. And I just think these are all the people that Jesus told us that we should care the most for. And so when I think about voting in November, when I think about, you know, the kind of country that I hope that we all want to live in, I got excited when Joe dropped out of the race and when Kamala stepped in. I feel like she's truly found her voice in the last 4 years, and I just could not be more thrilled with the choice of Tim Walz. I can't believe I went from this place of feeling complete despair and hopelessness to feeling so much hope, such a feeling of this divine momentum, I almost want to say. And, you know, I know that I've got family on the call tonight watching. And I just want to say to all of you that I love you all, and that I want to live in a country where we can worship together, where we can love together, where we can eat together, and where there's space for everyone, where everyone is welcome, regardless of their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, and where people are safe, where they are welcome with open arms, and where we truly live out the gospel, where we truly live that out in the way that we treat other people, in the way that we treat our neighbors. And so I'm super excited about November. I just want to encourage all of you. The one thing that I wanted you to take away from whatever I said is that people don't change, I don't think, as much through online arguments. I think they change when they sit down around a table and have conversations. That's how I have changed over the years when it comes to my own spiritual journey, when it comes to my own evolution as a human being. And I think that's where it happens. It happens around the table. It happens when we break bread together. And I just would encourage all of you to break bread with your family members, to break bread with your neighbors, and share about your life, share about what's important to you, share about your values, because that's what changes hearts and minds. Thank you so much for letting me be on the call, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate you staying with us. You've been on call for the whole night, so thank you for that. And our next guest has as well. He is a Catholic activist, organizer, and writer. He currently serves as co-national director of Catholics Vote Common Good. Would you please welcome Patrick Carolyn?
Thank you. Thank you, John. And thank all of you for being here. John mentioned I'm the director of Catholics Vote Common Good. I also was the executive director of the Franciscan Action Network for many years, and I co-founded the Global Catholic Climate Movement. I will say I'm Catholic. And so despite what a lot of your colleagues on the Christian right might think, we are actually Christians as well. But one thing I want to say is as a Catholic, when our Sunday masses, if they go on more than an hour, we get really upset, and many people just get out and walk away from the mass after an hour. They set their clocks. So I'm really grateful that you all hung in here this evening with us. It's such an important event, such an important evening, and such wonderful people that are here with us, people that I've worked with over the years. Recently, speaking at a Catholic conference on democracy in Italy, Pope Francis talked about how people feel excluded from democracy, with the poor and the marginalized being left to fend for themselves. He said it is evident that democracy is not in good health today. And then he went on and ended it by saying, let us be passionate about the common good. I was in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. You all remember that day. It was a day when violent armed insurrectionists carrying Bibles and images of Jesus in one hand and guns in another hand, in their other hand, attacked the Capitol building and threatened to kill elected officials. After the attack, Pope Francis said, there's always something that isn't working when people taking a path against the community, against democracy, and against the common good. As people of faith, we should judge our candidates based on their ethical and moral values. Others have said that this evening. We hope that the campaigns are issue-based with truthful, respectful discussions about how to move forward for the common good. We should have debates on how we can lift up the poor and the marginalized, protect God's beautiful and wondrous creation, and work to end violence. Instead, we have a campaign that one party is basing on lies, threats, and demonizing the other. Christianity is not about rules and regulations. It's not about posting the 10 Commandments in the classroom. It's about how we live our lives every single day, every moment of every day. St. Clare was a 14th century Franciscan. She's one of the founders of the Franciscan order. And she said that if you don't look at another person, when you look at another person, you should see Christ. And when other people look at you, they should see Christ. And if you're not seeing Christ in them and they're not seeing Christ in you, then you really need to rethink your Christianity. So again, I'm grateful that you're here, grateful that all of us are together to do this. We have a task in front of us. This is a wonderful evening, but it's just the beginning. So let's come together and not just reclaim our country, we can reclaim our Christianity when we do this. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. All right. Our next speaker was raised Baptist, converted to Pentecostalism in his youth, actively participating in ministry and GOP politics. He's now a proud LGBTQ plus member, activist, father, and progressive Christian, serving as a DNC delegate and a longtime Democratic campaigner in York County, South Carolina. Please welcome Ryan Stevens.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining. It's been a great honor to be in a Zoom full of amazing trailblazers for the progressive Christian faith. And, you know, thinking of my whole trajectory in life, I would never imagine I would be here. First, I'd never imagined that I can reconcile being gay and Christian and living a life that is pleasing to God. You know, growing up, I was told so many times that I was gonna go to hell because of my beliefs of loving all, and my own sexual identity was always a point that I had to reconcile within my own faith. And I truly have never felt more at home within progressive Christianity and finding Jesus that loves all, no matter who you are, no matter who we all claim to be. Jesus loves us all. And so what really what really changed my life was how Jesus provided for all of us and the love that was shown upon me in my own faith in life. And growing up, being Christian in the Republican world, it's just when I saw the Project 2025, the 900 pages, it just frightened me to believe that, you know, part of my own childhood, that I have so much trauma within the white evangelical faith, was so that they wrote it down, stuff that I heard growing up in my own faith system, and now they want to bring it out to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And it just frightens me. But, at the same time, I know that we have a God that gives us hope, that gives us love, that inspires us through all the darkness, through all of what is going on around us, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And it's love that will set us free. It is love that will get us to where we need to go. And for me, Jesus is love. God is love. God is everywhere. And, it was said earlier in tonight's call that if you can't look at someone and not see Jesus's face, then, what is your faith? Like, my faith is seeing God and seeing Jesus in everybody. And I cannot live a life that it was so fearful as the one that I grew up. I was fearful of my own sexual identity. I was going through conversion therapy so many times to now I see Jesus in myself, and I see Jesus in everybody around me, that God is love, and we're going to get through this. And I am so inspired to have such hope on this ticket, such hope for the future. I've never been more excited for what is to come. And I know all of us on this call that, we have a hope that is so strong, that is so endearing throughout time, that we are going to get through this. We're going to come out stronger on the other side. And we are reclaiming our faith. We are reclaiming what it means to be Christians in this day and age. And so I just want to thank everybody for joining. It's been a great evening, and I hope you just all donate. We need to pass that offering bucket a few times and just collect it some more. I hear some change in there. We need to hear some dollar bills going in. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much for sharing your words with us. All right, last but not least, our next speaker is a gay writer, activist, minister, and a TikTok religious influencer. His work now focuses on mindfulness, contemplation, and progressive Christianity. And since 2023, he has been the pastor of Sunnyside Reformed Church in Queens, New York. Let's welcome Reverend Brandon Robertson.
My name is Reverend Brandon Robertson, and I'm a pastor, author, and activist based in New York City. And I am so excited to be gathered with new friends and old here on this call of Christians for Kamala. This is one of the most important elections in modern history. I know you've heard that all throughout this election cycle and many times on this call tonight, but it's true. The country faces a pivotal choice. We have the choice between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, two men whose values are so fundamentally antithetical to the values that America has claimed as our own, and especially the values that we claim dear as followers of Jesus. And it's so heartbreaking to see the people that helped me come to faith, evangelical Christians, lining up en masse to support Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, even though their policies, and more than that, their moral behavior, is so antithetical to everything that Jesus preached and embodied. That's why it is so essential in this moment of history for Christians of conscience and moral courage to step up, to speak up, and to gladly cast our votes for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Our votes are votes for equality and dignity. They are votes for justice for those who arrive at our borders seeking asylum or a better life. Our votes are to protect children in schools from gun violence. Our votes are to protect women's fundamental right over their bodies. Our votes are to protect the LGBT community who continually faces marginalization and abuse from those who claim to stand on the moral values of the Christian faith. It is high time in this moment that Christians of progressive and inclusive theology stand up and speak up. We make our voices louder than the voices of the religious right, and we show the world that there are true followers of Jesus, true people that are inspired by the way of Jesus and his fundamental message to love our neighbors as ourselves. And the way we're going to love our neighbors is by casting our votes for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. I know that as we're gathered here tonight, this is just the beginning of this movement, of Christians and indeed of people of faith from all backgrounds coming together to unite our voices and to say that we are voting for a better future for our country. It is time for us to come together and to say that we are refusing to go backwards, that we are listening to the voice of the Spirit of God, which beckons us forward towards a more just and equal future for us all. And that is why I am so glad to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz as my choice for President and Vice President of the United States. And I call on all Christians to reflect deeply on the values of Jesus and the country that we want to see for our children and our grandchildren, and to cast your vote in alignment with that. Our scriptures say that for such a time as this, we were raised up. So let us take the moral high ground in this moment. Let us reclaim the public square as progressive people of faith. Let us show the nation, and indeed show the world, that America is still a nation with a moral backbone, that we are still a nation of justice and equity and a better future for all people. That is what a vote for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz is all about. And I am so honored to give her my endorsement and to call on all those of conscience and courage to consider casting their vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.
Wonderful words to end on. First of all, thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you so much to the speakers for lending your voices and your stories. And I hope that you all are excited to be a part of this movement that once loved to lead. I hope you feel inspired and encouraged and hopeful for what's to come in the next few months. And feel galvanized to reclaim your faith and proudly state that you love Jesus and everything that he stands for. Love is shown through action and obviously through leadership, which is why John and I are committed to keeping Christians for Kamala going. And remember, the work doesn't stop here, and it doesn't stop even after we elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. And as you leave tonight, please think about how you can continue to show up for your neighbor and for yourself, and in a way that exemplifies the life and teachings of Jesus. You're muted, John.
One more update before we go. You have raised so far $151,985.93. Truly wonderful. But the real important thing is what we have done together this evening. A couple things I need to do. I want to thank Melinda, my co-host, who has just done incredible work. This has really been just a small handful of people doing that. I'd like to thank Jen Pavlovitz, my wife, for doing all of the graphics and the website work. Dan Deitrich from Common Good Media for making this presentation run so beautifully, and Mary Lib Morgan for helping us with our all the details with all the speaker bios and everything. But here's the thing, friends. We have 84 days until the election. That's not a lot of time. And we're always talking about doing the small things, the here and the now and the small and the close, how we do those incremental changes where we can. And what Melinda and I did was just say, what can we do with what we have? And you don't need to do what we've done. You just need to go where you live and where you work and where you study and try to change with one small conversation and one little act of kindness. We're going to do this. So I'm just so proud of all of you. I thank our speakers for their generosity of their time, and just keep giving and keep donating long after the talk, long after this is done. And one more thing, we'll update the website, christiansforkamala.net, with everything. You'll have all the speaker stuff there. But thank you for really making a beautiful display of faith tonight. We are so grateful. Be well, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. Love you.
Thank you.